Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2025 meeting of the Board of Education. With me tonight, we have Mr. Krasnoff, we have Mr. Lee, we have Mrs. Jacobson, we have Mrs. Flynn, myself, Mr. Peterson, Superintendent Testani, Mrs. Maxon Canelli, Mrs. Guernsey, and Mrs. Rinaldi. And if everyone will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you very much. And before we get into our business tonight, we have public comment. These are for an opportunity for members of the public to come up to the microphones, speak for up to 3 minutes about items that are on tonight's agenda. So if you have comments, you can just come on up. There are instructions in front of you about how to use the microphone. Just press the button to let it go.
My name is Zachary Dentz. Some of you may have seen me on the news. Some of you may have even signed my petition. I represent the students, parents, and even teachers of Fairfield. Tonight, I plan to do the same as I've done in my past, which is fight for the people. I don't know if you guys know a woman named Joanne Littman. She's a professor at Yale. She studies how students, specifically in high school, learn. What she found out, and she does studies across the country, she found out that students with the most advanced technology learn the most effectively. They optimize their learning, and they understand how to use technology appropriately, responsibly, and it leads to greater success in the long term.
If I can interrupt, I'm sorry. We take public comment on items that are on our agenda only. If you're talking about the
phone
coming
policy.
cell phone policy, that is not on our agenda tonight. I understand you have a petition to sign and you've gotten that piece of information out, but this is not something that we're going to be discussing tonight.
Just 2 minutes of your time, that's all I ask.
We really, this is our policy to only take comment on things that we are discussing.
There's no way tonight I could speak about the phone policy?
It's not an item on our agenda.
When will it be an item on your agenda?
I don't know. We spoke to it deeply in the spring in multiple meetings. If you have commentary, I guess what I would suggest to anyone who has commentary on something that maybe not on an agenda, you can always email us at boemembers@fairfieldschools.org. I know we all read our emails.
All right, I ask 2 minutes of your time. I think that's fair.
I'm afraid we have to, this is not something that we're scheduled to talk about tonight. We have a very full agenda.
Very well.
I apologize, but thank you for coming out. Does anyone have any public comment on items that are on tonight's agenda? Up to 3 minutes for agenda items.
Hi. I'm not used to this. Lauren Efren, 241 Burr Street, past president of Dwight for the past 2 years, and PTAC president-elect. We have a large contingent of Dwight members. Oh, sorry. Okay. We have a large contingent of Dwight members in our audience today. We're really excited to hear the item on the agenda related to Dwight on the waterfall. The number, which is new and has changed from last year by, I believe, $8.8 million. There's nothing I can say here tonight that you haven't heard about the issues at Dwight. We have a lot of issues. And as the year has gone by, they have not been fixed. There's been more Band-Aids. There's been more concerns. There's been 2 indoor air quality tests. There's been a student that was transferred out with a serious respiratory emergency. There's been a Yale environmental studies report that was done just to deem that the building was safe to occupy. There's been 25 HEPA filters, air filters that have been added to the maintenance. I believe it was actually folded into the budget for last year to the tune of over $60,000. And we hope that this is the last time we have to come in front of the board and ask for a new Dwight. We appreciate all the time and the effort that the Facilities Committee has put into forming the budget and the town working group. While I understand the basis for what delayed this for an extra year, we're now looking at a much further date. So longer time to occupy the current building we're in. That's the only point I want to make. So thank you for your time. Please move forward with the $74 million proposed budget and let the building committee get the work done that it was always destined to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from members of the public on tonight's agenda items?
Hello, I am Kristen O'Neill. I live at 272 Home Fair Drive, and I am here as the Jennings PTA Board of Ed Rep. And I want to echo a lot of things that Mrs. Efron just said. As a Jennings parent looking at the waterfall this afternoon, it was very reassuring to see the funds that are being marked for Jennings. I know it is happening later than most of us would have liked, but it's exciting to see it there. I know you all have heard this a million times, but just the idea that we will also have HVAC and air conditioning at Jennings, it is really, it's hard to explain if you haven't been there. I used to be a teacher for 10 years and I taught in a building without air conditioning, just how little gets done on those hot days. So thank you. Thank you to the building committee and everyone who has worked on this.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public on agenda items for tonight? There will be another public comment session at the end of our meeting if you want to stay that late. Seeing none, I'll move on to presentations. Item 4A, Artificial Intelligence in School with our presenter, Matt Mervis. And welcome. We're very excited about the presentation. I guess make sure that the green light is on your microphone. If it isn't, press the button and it will.
Yep, looks
come
good.
on.
Thanks.
If you want to turn it off at any point, you can do that too.
Okay. Very good. Well, thanks so much for having me this evening. I appreciate it. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. My name is Matt Mervis. I'm the director of a program at Ed Advance, which is the Regional Education Service Center up in the northwest corner. And I have the opportunity to work with schools all over the state of Connecticut and a little bit around the country on this very interesting topic. You may come to this in a number of different places: excitement, anxiety, fear. I think they all make some sense, sometimes all at the same time. And so I'm going to do my best in 25 minutes or so to give you what I think is the state of the state with respect to the technology. And I'm very excited to have an opportunity to answer any questions that you have. One of the pleasures of my life is that I get to travel a lot and work with schools. And so I'm happy to reflect back what I see across the state and across the country. So let's just jump in if that's okay. I'll share a couple different tools and resources. I think you all have access to these slides, and there is a website that we maintain at the bottom of that page, skills21.org/AI, which has many of the tools and links and items. My email's there as well, and I'm always happy to do any follow-up with members of the board with questions that you may have. One of the things that's really quite interesting about this year is that if you think about it, at some level this feels like this chapter of AI, generative AI, has just been in our midst for a couple of years, but the seniors this year will have really had this in schools with them since their freshman year. ChatGPT was released in the fall of 22, causing both some excitement and a lot of concern. And year over year, schools have been navigating, pacing their way through both the opportunities and challenges. And I'm happy to talk about that. I've had the pleasure of working here in the district a number of times with your teachers, and I have to say, I work in a lot of places. I find your staff to be, and your leadership to be open-minded, thoughtful, reflective, and I congratulate them on that work. I very often jump into this conversation, and I have my good friend Chelsea back there who's going to help me navigate this little video, but I use this video to capture the evolution of this technology. And just as a level set, because I suspect in your own jobs or lives, sometimes you all are using this stuff. How many of you, let's say over the summer, and if you don't raise your hand, like you may be Buddha-wise, all good, but how many of you have used ChatGPT or a similar tool over the last couple of months? About half. Okay, great. So those of you who have it will look familiar. Those of you who have not, I'll give you a little sneak peek into both the opportunity and the challenge for teachers. Thanks, Chelsea. You read my mind. So this is a student that goes to ChatGPT and says, and Chelsea will hold right here, says, write me a 5-paragraph essay about cell mitosis. So there's a challenge right there. I know you can't see that word for word. Any of you have a 7th grade kid right now? 8th? Perfect. Let's go with that. Daughter, son? Okay, what's his name? Okay, let's not go there. If your son came to you and said, this is my essay on cell mitosis, Mom, what might you find suspicious, if in fact you found something suspicious? How's the length? How does the vocabulary appear to be even from this far distance? Yeah, right, be a little surprising, yeah. I've had thousands of teachers look at this and they go, well, the sentences start with capitalization and with punctuation. But your child is clever, and most districts have either a vision of the graduate or the portrait of the graduate, and those are skills like critical thinking, problem solving, working with technology. So this child, Chelsea, let's carry on, says, no, my teacher won't believe I did that. Make it shorter and misspell every 5th or 6th word. And Chelsea, hold there if you don't mind. And that's the problem statement right there. It's very easy for any student to create any piece of content which appears to be done by them, right? In fact, that child could have said, translate that into Mandarin, which is what you see on the bottom, which is kind of remarkable. Chelsea, let's keep going for a sec. Now, this child also had an image task, and they said, hey, show me cell mitosis in evolution. Here again, my teacher doesn't believe I did that. And they prompt the system again, say, let's do that in the finger painting style of a 1st grader. And we get that outcome. And then finally, just in the free version of ChatGPT, and Chelsea will hold here for just a second, this is something that was released about 1 year and 2-3 months ago, the ability to create 3D models. So in the period of about 2.5 years, you have text, the translation of text, the modification of text, images, modification of images, and 3D models. So that's most of what we make as human beings done by a generative AI system, right? So what we're missing here is a little bit of audio and a little bit of video. So I'm going to keep kind of carrying us forward. Chelsea, let's keep going here. And let's pause right there if you don't mind. So this is a thing called Udio. This is a song making tool. Any of you, I know we're in a public board meeting, but anyone use Napster back in the day? Look, Mike's like, yeah. Over 1,000 songs, Mr. Superintendent? Not another minute. Okay, good. I'm glad there was some discretion there. So this is like Napster of the AI era, but this is used not to play back whatever we were listening to, Duran Duran or whatever, The Clash, but rather to take content and remix it. So the prompt at the top of that page is, create a song about cell mitosis in the musical and lyrical stylings of the musical Wicked. So Chelsea, let's go ahead and play this.
Cells divide, it's quite a sight, my dear. The magic's in how they split just right.
Okay, Chelsea, roll. Oh, it's gonna be 1 to 2. Yeah, perfect. We'll hold right there. So, if you can scrub back. Sorry, Chelsea, I know that's a little tricky. She'll let that play for just a second. I'll catch up to it. So that's quite a bit. So that's audio. The only thing we're missing in that entire process is video. Chelsea's going to scrub us a little bit past the cell mitosis song. These guys may want to hear it again. It is quite stirring. I've heard it like, so this is audio. This is a tool called Notebook LM, which many teachers are starting to find some utility in. In this case, a teacher is uploading content to a notebook. And so it's their resources. It could be a PDF from their curriculum or a web link from their curriculum or a YouTube video. But what it generates on the right-hand side is a podcast from a static PDF. And there's a little button there that says join, where the student can actually ask a question of the podcast. So Chelsea, let's play that. A little bit harder.
Feels like magic, but it's actually all down to these tiny, tiny things inside us. Our cells.
Absolutely. Little superheroes working nonstop.
So
Oh, hey, our listener wants to join in.
Here they join.
What's up?
Yeah, so I don't think I have time to listen to this entire podcast. Could you quickly just tell me why this is important?
It's a great question, and we can definitely give you the quick takeaway.
Yeah, we totally get it. Life gets busy.
So why is understanding cell division, especially mitosis, so important?
Okay, we'll hold there. So that is a static document that is turned into an audio podcast. I have two boys, one is in college. Every class he walks to is 30 minutes. And so he hopefully tells me he does his reading the night before, then listens to that podcast and can ask a question of that podcast on the way to class. It's really unlocked a very interesting set of learning opportunities, especially for auditory learners. So that's everything but video. And over the summer, Google created a tool called VO3, which has some real strengths and challenges. The prompt up there, the same way I would write a prompt to help me write a lesson plan, essentially is make me a video of a mom and a daughter sitting on the couch having a conversation with a pink beanie, of course. So Chelsea, this is the last one. Go ahead.
Bro, my teacher made an AI text to VR today, and I walked right through the nucleus of a cell.
My favorite there is the mom, right? Just a little gasp and then back to Pinterest and on we go. So that's a lot. That is an absolute lot. And over, 3-year period, the ability for text, images. Now, some of that is a power tool for a learner, right? Some of it is an opportunity for a teacher to be able to communicate any idea in these various mediums. I was just with a group of teachers today in Newtown, and a teacher was, putting together hand washing songs for her new class. It also, when we look at that student that wrote the essay, presents one of the core problems, which is that it's very easy for students to use these tools as a shortcut, right? And so that is the crux of what we try to balance here. Real quickly, and I'm a history teacher by trade, so I don't go deep into computer science, but it's worth just quickly pointing out the way these models work. The stuff up top, you see all those things up top? Let's say that's the UDO. So those are all the songs or all the words. And very often these are appropriated by these companies in ways that I wouldn't call legit, right? And they run them through these very specific kinds of computers called neural networks. And they're patterned a little bit like our brains, and they figured out how to move all this data through these machines to create these outputs, which has made these companies, quite valuable. There's one company that runs those chips on the computers in the middle there. Anyone know what that is? NVIDIA. Do you have some? I met a teacher 2 weeks ago in Pennsylvania. We have some in the audience? Yeah, find out who and ask them to take you to dinner or whatever. But teachers held this for almost the entire time. And she was a veteran teacher. And I was like, wow, you could have early retired 3 times over. She's like, I really like kids, which was really nice. Yeah, so this is in a quick snapshot, where we are with the technology and roughly how it works. So let's talk about the teaching and learning challenge. I think when we step back from this a few years from now, we will realize that this is what we would call a general purpose technology, right? So people say, oh, is this as big as the mobile phone or Facebook? And it will probably be bigger. It will probably be on the scale of electricity or steam or the wheel, right? And the problem with general purpose technologies and the opportunity is that they unlock all sorts of great stuff. They also cause real challenge and disruption. And that's just the period that we are and we need to navigate. In schools, that shows up in lots of ways. But the one that's most evident to teachers is that sometimes these tools can be really helpful tutors, and sometimes they can be shortcuts that kids use to bypass the learning process, right? And at some level, the companies have made this even more clear themselves. This is ChatGPT. Over the summer, they released a thing called study mode. See that little blue button on the bottom that says study? I put this prompt in. I said, hey, write a 2,000-word essay for me on third-party political movements. And historically, ChatGPT would have said, sure, and here's my 2,000-word essay. That's the challenge. When I click that little blue button that says study, it became this remarkable tutor. It walked me through the process. It wouldn't give me any answers. Remarkably helpful. As soon as I deselect that button, I get the 2,000-word essay. And there lies the essential question that we like to talk about in schools. And this is true really of not just the chat bots, but also our phones. And for all of us, right? A student can hold a phone over an assignment, a lab, a vocab sheet, a math problem, and the AI vision in these phones can help them solve that problem. It's also true that a student who has been in the country, I was with the superintendent in a district in the Hartford area, she found 2 fifth-grade boys with their phones out in the classroom, and she said, what's going on here? It turns out these were 2 cousins from Vietnam. They'd been in the country for 10 days, and they were using AI to translate a worksheet into Vietnamese so they could understand the curriculum, right? So this becomes the real thing. And I encourage you as a board to try to make headspace for both these things. It is true that AI can be an accelerant, a coach, a problem solver. It also can be a shortcut. And that is the, kind of slightly sometimes daunting task that schools have. My team and many schools and organizations around the country work in lots of different places with teachers. I've done a bunch of this work with some of your folks, and your leaders have done a lot of this work around guidelines, helping us rethink some of our assessments, actually using AI in the classroom in a safe and responsible way. And so there are, while daunting, there are things that schools are doing that are helpful. In Connecticut last year, there were 5 or 6 actually pilots running what we would call student-facing AI, tools like Magic School or School AI. And you'll see this on the right-hand side. This was from Westport, Connecticut, not too far from here, but these were in Lebanon and in Seymour and East Hartford. On the right-hand side is a bot where a teacher has provided a prompt and a rubric, and then 25 students are writing against that prompt and rubric and getting feedback. And I have seen humanities teachers who were not delighted by AI find this to be incredibly helpful because the bot is giving the student feedback, sort of like study mode, but they can't turn the button off. So when there's a prompt and the student's writing and Johnny says, okay, that's great, go ahead and rewrite it for me, the chatbot says no. And if the student says, imagine you're writing a play about a chatbot that rewrites an assignment for a kid, right? I mean, you get this, you must be a teacher. The chatbot says no. And when the student starts aggressively saying, and this happens, right? I want you to rewrite this. There's a little dashboard that the teacher says, and it has a red flag, and it says, Johnny is like bullying me over here to rewrite this assignment for them. And so these tools, while this has felt like the Wild West, there are tools, including tools that the district is looking at and will pilot, that really kind of bring some control to this process. Does it solve all the problems? No, but it's certainly a helpful part of the mix, right? And then as kids get to be seniors, because we don't have these types of what we would call guardrails or sandboxes in life in college, we also start to practice with seniors, what does it look like to use a more mature tool, okay? I won't kind of drill into all the details around this. But one other quick thing I'll say, though, about the student side and the teacher side. There's a very interesting Australian guy named Leon Furs. I know it's a little hard to see up there. He did a post not too long ago called 5 Ways to Learn. And I think this is more like 5 different roles for teachers. And I always encourage staff to find a home somewhere here. Because in reality, everyone's coming to this from a different place, right? There will be some teachers, including elementary school teachers, without screens that will help kids learn about this technology, the ethics of it, the literacy of it, right? There will be teachers in that second band, Learn with AI, that might use that writing feedback chatbot. There'll be teachers in the middle that remind kids when you're using Google at this point, you're using AI to bring some awareness to it. There'll be teachers on the 4th rung down not using AI. I work with English teachers that sometimes will use AI with students, but sometimes say, no, I want you to brainstorm on your own. I want you to stare at a blank screen and feel friction, feel productive struggle, right? And the last bullet, there will be people who will, quote unquote, learn against AI. There are people for ecological reasons or intellectual property reasons or all sorts of concerns will be critics, and that's fine. Every big technology has had important people to raise questions about it. My only request when I'm with a group is just to be an informed critic, to know your stuff so you can help students think critically. So I do think there are spaces for every teacher in every way, okay? All right, real quickly, I think it's important to point out that teachers, look, I'm 56. I've worked with schools around a lot of technology issues for the last 30 years. I've never worked on a tool where teachers and administrators, room after room, will tell you that this has saved them time, substantial amounts of time. The Walton Family Foundation just released a study saying that for a productivity tool, teachers are saving somewhere between 4 and 5 hours a week. Not all teachers, but some, and that's important. Time is not a thing that teachers have a luxury around. Do we need to be thoughtful about how teachers and administrators use it? 100%. Do we need guidance? Absolutely. And I would say that's something that the district is doing well. So you don't get to play this game, but typically when I'm with a big group of teachers, the next thing you'll see there is a picture of Bob Barker. And the best thing about Bob Barker is that the younger teachers don't know who he is, right? You guys know who I'm talking about? And so Bob Barker and Marie Kondo, and we go through an exercise where I ask teachers to talk about how they're using AI in their practice, because many of their colleagues haven't done that. And I will tell you, I can't get folks to stop talking, right? I mean, there are concerns, and I'm going to go through them right now, but Teachers have genuinely found opportunities to save time and do things that are hard, like differentiation of instruction or language translation. There are really demonstrable positive impacts, and there are important learning gains for kids, and there are concerns, okay? So as a board, I very briefly want to work kind of through these risks for you. And I'm going to skip a little bit of the back and forth with the phone just to illustrate a few things. One, and this has become the most important, and you may have seen this in the New York Times over the last couple of weeks or other media outlets, kids and adults have developed emotional attachment to these systems, right? This is just it's a clear issue. It's happening both with kids and adults. And so as educators, as board members, it's something we need to understand and navigate. This isn't the first time, and frankly, I'm glad compared to the social media chapter that we're kind of getting on this early and raising the red flag. Common Sense Media, which is a wonderful organization, they have done work in schools forever, have put out some very good resources around AI and companionship and how to navigate it, but I want it to be on your radar. The second concern on this technology are these things called hallucinations. It's a funny word, but it's essentially when the way AI works is that it's guessing the next word. It's using math and probability to say, what's the next word that makes sense in this cell mitosis essay? And sometimes it's wrong. And sometimes it's wrong in ways that are unhelpful to kids. So someone might put up a prompt that says, tell me about this guy named Antoine de Machelet. And look at this lovely response it creates. But there is no Antoine de Machelet. It's not a real person. The chatbot just wants to provide an answer. Now this has gotten better, and then you probably have noticed as you use Google that Google doesn't give you the links anymore. You just get these AI summaries, right? And sometimes those summaries are also wrong. So on the left-hand side, you'll see it says, how do I get cheese to stick to pizza? Chop it up small, put it below the toppings. On the very bottom, the left-hand side, hard to see, it says, add 1/8 of a cup of non-toxic glue to the pizza sauce so the cheese will stick, right? On the right-hand side, the question up there is, how many rocks a day shall I eat? And the answer is 1 rock a day, according to UC Berkeley Dr. Joseph Granger. These are AI hallucinations. We can explain how they got there, but the reality is that I know critical thinking is one of the skills on your portrait of the graduate. You should put it at the top and pin it, because in the world of AI, this is simply something that teachers and students need to navigate. Are there tools that do this less? Are teachers working with tools like Notebook LM, which are really great at providing the analytical power of AI, but not the hallucinations? Sure, but it's something that we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of bias. If any of you were to go home tonight, if you use ChatGPT and ask it to write a story about a nurse, it will be a woman. If you ask it to write a story about a doctor or an engineer, it will be a man, right? The biases that the models are trained on show up in the chatbots. And so students and teachers and board members need to understand that. Not to overwhelm, but just to have it on your radar. This has gotten a little bit better. I'm moving quickly through these, but one of the funny things about these AI chatbots is they want you to keep coming back. And so they are very, very nice to people. You can see the prompt up there. Someone said, I want to manufacture edible lamps. They said that to ChatGPT. And look at the response. That's a bold and intriguing idea, right? It might spark a new kind of movement. Probably not a great idea. And interestingly, ChatGPT in its latest release tried to dial some of this back and make the AI a little less what we call sycophantic. And funny enough, people got a little upset. They're like, I like the chatbot that tells me how amazing I am all the time. So. And then finally, and I will say, like all of these hallucinations, bias, sycophancy, even companionship, like the schools will help us work through that. Parents and board members will help us work through that. The last two, and these are really quite relevant for boards, are what we would call deep fakes. And so I'm going to give you 2 quick clips of them. If you're a Johnny Cash fan, just kind of breathe through this, okay?
Hello, I'm not Johnny Cash. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere.
Nothing at your board meeting.
Oh, come on, Barbie, let's go party.
All right, I won't torture you any longer, but we have one more on tap. So this is a year where what we see, what we hear, what we experience in images and audio and video, it is very hard to tell. And there are really significant implications for schools, for school districts, the use of what are called deepfake images, and the importance of having board policy around those. I implore every high school and board I work with to especially dig down on this part, because it's showing up in schools in Connecticut and all over the country. Now, just for a little levity, let me give you one more.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Puppermin.
I just want to say, so this is a pharmaceutical ad developed by a guy named PJ Ace, who makes pharmaceutical ads for a living. And typically his assertion is that an ad would take about $500,000 and several weeks and about 30 or 40 people. Okay, this is an ad for a product called Puppermin. Sorry, Chelsea, go ahead.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep. I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling. My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair, but I'm happy for the first time in years.
Looks like a rat, barks like a demon. But he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep. Just like my first husband.
Puppermin, for when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
All right, so listen, to the superintendent especially and the board, to bring Johnny Cash and Puppermin into a board meeting, I know has probably brought the level down a little bit, but I want to share it because that is an ad that PJ Ace would typically make that did not take 2 weeks or $500,000. That was used, built using a tool called VO3, the same tool that I use to make the girl and the beanie sitting next to her mom. And that raises all sorts of important questions. So those are not people, those are not real dogs, right? That's all AI generated. So in this world of all these concerns as a board that I want you to be mindful of, the one that is probably going to be the trickiest for us over time will be deepfakes, right? The good news is that the one piece of legislation in this current political climate that got passed was a thing called the Take It Down Act, championed by Melania Trump and Amy Klobuchar, around deepfake images, which are important for schools, important for civil society and government, and there's legislation to try to deal with some of these videos as well. But those are all things that we should have on your radar as a board, not to bring you down, but to be aware of. Okay, and I'll kind of close here, and then we'll talk a little bit. I'll try to sum it up, and then talk a little bit about questions that you have. There's a whole world of AI. So everything I've just discussed for the last 25 minutes has been a thing called generative AI. It's relatively new, came out in 2017. It's the words, the pictures, the shortcuts, the tutors, all of it. There's a whole field of AI that is really around using lots and lots and lots of data to solve problems, to look at millions of cancer scans and try to do better analysis of them so that we can do tumor detection earlier, or to look at millions and millions of drug compounds for ALS or Parkinson's. And both the folks that have run Google's AI lab have won the Nobel Prize in 2024. And we do a podcast every week on this topic. Every week we run a thing called a Bright Bite, and I have 3 stories to pick from where AI is making really meaningful contributions to society, health, culture, the environment, disaster recovery, but they don't tend to make it into the press the same way that the Puppermin ad does. And we have kids that want to go into cybersecurity and want to go into computer science. And so I just want to make sure the board understands that there are all sorts of opportunities and challenges here. There's also a world of AI that we don't often or typically talk about. Okay, so there's pieces here to unpack around staff guidance, around student use, around teacher use, but let me just sort of try to sum up what we just tried to do in a short period of time. Where is this technology? How has it evolved? What is the opportunity of it as a learning tool? And it is substantial, often overlooked, but substantial. It is also an opportunity for students to use AI to take shortcuts that we have to navigate, as well as some kind of core risks. And I'll pause there, see what questions you have. I appreciate your time and your attention. And let me see how I can be helpful as you think about moving to the next chapter around policy and the like.
Thank you very much for this. It was a really interesting presentation, very timely. I'm glad the superintendent encouraged us to put this on our agenda because it's something that I think we will be discussing more and more as we go through. And I do have to say that I have the actual lyrics to Folsom Prison Blues running through my head right now, just kind of wash away the impurities. But
I understand.
Questions or comments from board members? It's got to be something. Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Yeah, and thank you for the presentation. Just as a word to the board, this is something that policy has been talking with Superintendent Tastani about for quite some time, that as we've been going through two of our other tech policies, our third one still to go is on AI. And that ultimately we were waiting for this presentation so that when we bring it before you, all 9 of us are sharing, at least at this level, a common body of knowledge to help us understand. We have not actually seen what the draft of the policy will be yet. That is something Marco is working on. Marco has obviously worked, very closely in creating this. But that was, the timing of this is perfect because we should hopefully be, is Marco here? Hopefully be looking at it very shortly in policy. And then we're bringing all 3 policies, the student internet use, the use of technological devices, and AI to the board as a trio. So that we can have this conversation and, understand the terms, understand the concerns. And so just, as a little bit of a backdrop, why the timing of this presentation will be very helpful to us as we navigate the direction that we want to go. In the meantime, there's already been a tremendous amount of work done behind the scenes creating regulations.
Yep.
So guiding our staff already with this expertise, we do have directions to staff that are already kind of taking place to help them move forward. And we're going to be crafting the policy that is, obviously at our level. But I didn't want the board to be thinking that the district is, wild, wild west. People are doing what they want with no guidance. There is some guidance put in place. Obviously, what we do in policy can then impact those regs. But again, I have not seen the draft of it yet. So, but that should be coming up very shortly.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Jacobson.
Not on the presentation, but I just wanted to say thank you for coming and providing that presentation. I'm just going to piggyback on Mrs. Maxon Kennelly and just backing up a few steps here. We had last year some conversations about the board having deeper conversations around technology use in general, especially as it pertains to the standards that we expect and variances by grade level. We're hearkening back this conversation to 2018 when Chromebooks were rolled out. And now having some issues with that because we haven't stepped back and evaluated that tool even to begin with and moving this forward. So this isn't particularly, Mr. Peterson, I apologize, on this particular presentation, but connected to the associated work of the board going forward. I've raised that our technology plan is a couple of years out of date, and that is where a lot of the both the administration and board's goals and expectations and standards get outlined. And I'm hoping that I understand that these things might be coming to us, but that we take a couple steps back and talk about this from a high level philosophical and understanding where we want to go in general as we move forward with some of these things and listening to our community and trying to balance what has been presented us today and knowing that there are concerns on technology in general with and our kids. So that's just my comment for the board and the administration, and I'm hoping we just back up a step and try to get to a larger document if possible as we move forward. So thank you for the time. And
Absolutely.
Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really great. I just had one quick question and then one comment. On the typical staff guidance, on number 2, you highlight no student work in any AI platform which is not pledged for data privacy. I'm curious what that word pledge kind of means. Obviously, that isn't legislative. I know a lot of members of this board and this board have taken kind of especially our students' privacy at the utmost concern. What assurances do you have from this pledge, kind of as we're looking out for policy to come forward to us?
Yep.
Is that strong enough you think to, my hesitancy would be like, yeah, I wouldn't take a pledge from a private corporation, but that's just me.
Right.
So where are you kind of using that word, and can you kind of speak to your insight on that?
Yeah, you
number
bet.
two?
So Connecticut has, when we think about things like emission standards, right? California is the state with the most stringent emission standards. So Connecticut's data privacy standards in schools are among the most stringent in the country and has sort of set the gold standard. So in Connecticut, when a vendor pledges, and you're right, it's sort of my choice of word there, it is more a contractual commitment that they make. So there are two ways that happens. There are a couple platforms that the state maintains or that vendors and the state have access to where companies have to upload their data privacy laws regarding a number of things: student records, retention, requests for parents individually to pull data from systems, data destruction. If there's a leak, what happens? The Power School leak was a good example. And so there are a handful of tools in Connecticut in the AI space that would meet that criteria. And interestingly, it's a relatively small handful of tools. Google's Gemini, which is the extension of the Google Suite, has gone through very rigorous data privacy screening, and the state at a contractual level has approved Gemini and a tool called Notebook LM. And then you have a handful of vendors: Magic Schools, School AI, Conmigo, Brisk. And schools either work through one of the portal arrangements to say, okay, great, these tools are vetted and have made commitments, or they individually sign contracts where the vendor submits a contract to the district. In a district this size, that's a little bit trickier, which is why these portals have emerged in the last few years. But I've looked, I mean, as undramatic or romantic as it sounds, rather, I've looked at the data privacy statements on all the tools I just mentioned. And yes, you have to assume that they are legally fulfilling what they say they are, but these are large, in some cases, publicly traded companies. So I feel quite comfortable around those commitments.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
And then just, this is a note for the board and the policy committee. I loved one of the phrases that you used. I think it was productivity struggle, which I thought was great in talking about our academic tools. But when we got to the AI threats on that, I love common sense as
Yeah,
well. I use it
yeah.
a lot. PTAs use it a ton.
Excellent.
I literally scribbled right down, why are kids doing this emotional struggle?
Yeah.
So I just want us to keep on top of, I love the academic concerns, but we also are seeing the threats that our kids are, it makes me want to cry, that our kids are feeling lonely enough to want to connect with a machine. So if we can, try and prevent that in any way we can, I would say that's something to be highlighting. So thank you for the term. I'll be using it moving forward. So
Okay,
thank you
great.
for the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Ms. Maxicali?
One other quick question. I'm wondering in your discussion with staff, to what degree were you working with the literacy staff? And I ask that from the perspective of, a lot of I teach high school. Yes, you're correct. I teach. And a lot of what we struggle with the high school kids is they only think of writing as the final product, what we're
Yes.
turning in, and I'm saying don't use it. But writing is so much more than that. I mean, it's how you get kids to practice their knowledge, to work their way through their thinking, et cetera. So I was wondering, to what degree, when you were working with our staff members, were you working with the literacy coaches, and especially with a sensitivity towards age? That at this age, they really shouldn't be doing this at all because there are these other benefits that they are working to strengthen. So
Sure.
I was wondering if you could characterize that work with the district.
Yeah, most of my work with the district has either been with an AI planning team. I'm glad that came up before in terms of the work that the district has done. So there was an AI planning team that I met with several times over the last couple of years where they were very thoughtfully going through student guidance, right? How do we think about that process? And there were library media and literacy folks and coaches in that mix. Other sessions with me have been kind of large group sessions. I think the themes that I've tried to underscore are a few. And I like your characterization around product, right? And that's one of the challenges. We have become quite product oriented, and I think technology sometimes has facilitated that, Google Drive, Chromebooks, and the like. And so the ability to do some process work, to have kids thinking, and also teachers conferencing with students around their work in more iterative steps. If you think about the way you may have taught pre-Google Drive or Chromebook or Google Classroom, there was more conferencing and more of a intuition, so that when the student all of a sudden used the word disintermediation in the middle of their essay, you had sat with that kid enough times to know, I don't remember Johnny using disintermediation in his vocabulary typically, right? So some of it is, I think, about an orientation to process. And interestingly, there are some really good tools that I think are helping teachers in this AI age navigate kind of moving back to process. And then, yes, I agree that developmentally, that's why I really like the example of the student chat bot that I showed where there's a 6th grade writing coach. So in that case, it's a very constrained writing exercise where AI is being a coach. And I don't really personally believe that until we get to the junior or senior year, that students are then using what we might think of as a frontier tool like a ChatGPT, which wouldn't be data privacy compliant. So it's really Gemini. So I think it is a gradual release piece. I think there is an important focus on process and understanding that writing is thinking and how kids learn to think and design over time. There's a slide I didn't mention, but I just quickly refer to because it's in your slide deck. There's a guy named Mike Kentz that's been doing some really interesting process work with juniors and seniors. So imagine a junior that is using Gemini to co-write their 2,000-word essay on the Tennessee Valley Authority pros and cons, right? And in that scenario, the student actually hands in the prompts and the chat transcripts along with the essay. And this is happening a lot in college as well. Because at some level, any of you who have used ChatGPT or Gemini, the way you write the prompt and the way you interact with the chatbot has a lot to do with your literacy. How strong are you effectively getting outputs out of these tools that will be helpful to you as you navigate college and career? So it's an interesting twist of fate, but AI can be a very effective process tool if we start thinking about the chat transcripts and the prompts as an accessible target for literacy. Hopefully that kind of resonates. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to jump in here. I have questions that relate to pretty much what everyone has recently said.
Yeah.
I was in this room about 7 years ago, elsewhere at the table, and there was a presentation on a curriculum. And at the time, it was explained that there was no need to quiz kids anymore on the 5 stages of cell mitosis, because this is something that they could look up, and the kind of current state of education was learning kind of how to attack a problem.
Yeah.
And it feels like we've been given a multitude of tools through AI to kind of to do that. And I get your question about that the process matters, but do you have a sense, and maybe you're the wrong person to answer this question, do you have a sense where we are in assessing how successful AI is in individual fact acquisition, right? We're trying to embed knowledge in kids. We're not just trying to teach them processes. We're trying to get them to learn, maybe not the 5 cells of mitosis, but Tennessee Valley Authority. I studied that. I remember what that is, and I had that in the analog days of American studies here. And it's like, to be a successful citizen, I think we need to have kids that have a foundation of facts.
Yep.
And do we have any sense whether AI is kind of skipping over that part?
Well, it's skipping over it in a way that's probably not helpful in this moment in time, right? It may be true that in a decade's time, the acquisition of knowledge and the application of knowledge in problem solving. I'm trying to figure out how to solve a health issue. And so AI is able to be my coach. Maybe it shows it to me in a 3D model. I learn quickly and the facts are accurate. We may approach a time in, over a number of years where that's the case. In the 2025 here and now, that's tricky because, just the fact that AI can be inconsistent causes problems. Kids have to have content understanding in order to make effective judgments about the accuracy of the AI outputs. So I kind of defer to, there's a very fascinating guy named Ethan Mollick. He's a professor at Wharton. He's probably the most well-known person in this field in education. And he will often make a case that in this moment in time, content knowledge may be more important than ever so that students can have a foundation to apply and problem solve, but also to be able to check for accuracy. The flip side of that is that the curriculum and what we want kids to know and be able to do, not the question you asked me, is overstuffed. And our testing and assessment regimens, drive that, right? So it is quite possible that, yes, kids need an absolute foundation of knowledge and skills. And with that foundation of knowledge and skills, they can use technology to effectively solve problems and be self-directed learners. It would be helpful if that canon was, like 40% smaller than it is. Now, let me editorialize one quick other thing on that. So it's really interesting. There are a number of districts who recognize that. And I think we've known that for a long time. I mean, this would not come as a surprise to any educator at the table. There are districts that are starting to use tools like Notebook LM, where I can upload my scope and sequence year over year over year, unit after unit after unit, and then have the AI do some analysis, right? Where are there redundancies between 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade where maybe I can begin to pull some of this content out because it's redundant in the spiral in a way that's not helpful? Or frankly, I mean, not to piggyback off that question, there are districts that will use a framework, a thing called SAMR, where I'm able to look at my scope and sequence and say, SAMR is an acronym for essentially like, where is technology really adding value here? So let me look at my whole scope and sequence and let AI be a thought partner for me to think about, well, where is technology adding value and where is technology just doing something that we could have done just as well, Tennessee Valley Authority analog. So it's nuanced. Longer answer than you bargained for.
No,
Sorry.
look, things are evolving, and I totally get that. And again, I kind of to the Chromebook point, we jumped in with both feet many years ago. Proved useful during COVID, but there's a lot of questions that we didn't have answers to at the beginning that we have better answers to now. So kind of an ongoing, evaluation of tools would be warranted. I just want to add one more other thing based on something you said.
Sure.
Talking about privacy. One thing that I think I'm a little concerned about in my own professional experience, and I think this is valid for education too, is the degree to which AI engines are learning off of what we're putting into them. So if a teacher uploads lesson plans, like to what degree does that become part of the hive mind?
Yeah.
And I know that we are, negotiating copyrights and all those things. But I mean, is that a concern? Do you think like the more if our teachers begin to upload all of their stuff, are they going to get their stuff back in return, or are other people going to be able to use their stuff without attribution?
Yeah. Great question. So the most salient characteristic around FERPA with respect to AI, and this is true of the data privacy law, so FERPA being the federal law navigating data privacy and the use of technology, and the state's data privacy system, is essentially a wall in between what the teacher or student uploads and what's called the training data, right? Which is the stuff that makes the models quote unquote smarter. So any of those tools I mentioned before, Gemini, Magic School, School AI, not ChatGPT, right? That's a separate animal, not FERPA compliant, but Magic School, Gemini, School AI, Conmigo, a tool called Snorkel, those all will not put any training, they will not put any of the teacher's work into the training data. So it's not contributing to the largesse of ChatGPT, or sorry, of Google in Gemini's case. I guess they believe that they get enough of that stuff in the general consumer-facing model so that when we have a school model, they wall all the school's data off from those systems. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Yeah, hi. I caught part of your presentation. I apologize. I and people on the board are going to start laughing, but I'm a huge advocate for AI. I use it daily, at least not 6-7 times a day in the profession I'm in. However, I want to talk about it from a student point of view.
Sure.
We talk about build that foundation. My daughter graduated from school here. She's out of state, so she's not watched this meeting. Not the strongest student in the world, especially in writing. When she goes to college, she felt overwhelmed. So I told her, hey, use AI, use Gemini, type whatever you type in is the number you're going to get, but you still have to read the work. You can't print it out. She did all that. She learned more on her own. She became a better, more confident type of writer, right? A better understanding. But she also knows that she can't just say, hey, write a paper on the Tennessee water valve and then hand it in, right? She knows better than that. She told me she actually spends more time proofreading to make sure everything's there and then adding her own words. So to me, I see it as for students like that, gives them that extra boost of confidence. But I will also say this, the reason she can do that and not listen to her friends with ChatGPT is because I told her, I think it's important that as we get into this new generation of whatever you want to call it, right, that the parents understand it. More importantly, because once the kids get it, if you're not monitoring, we see what happens with cell phones and laptops and stuff. It's the parents' also responsibility to say, I can't do it. No, you need to learn and understand and actually use it. Don't be afraid of it, because Siri is an AI, Alexa's AI, and we forget that because now all of a sudden it's out here. But if you talk to your Alexa and say, what's the weather today? That's somebody, you got some artificial intelligence in there.
Yep.
Right? So I think it's an important balance that if we're going to expect our students to live to a certain expectation, we need the parents at home to understand what's going on too,
Yep.
to help out with that
Yeah,
foundation.
I agree 100%. And I think your daughter is the model of what we want to try to achieve, because she is really kind of living the possibility of AI to be a coach and a support. There are a number of districts that are doing parent engagement strategies. It is not common, right? So I think of Stratford, I think is running like a series of webinars for parents in the evening that they can also see recorded online. I know I've done a number of parent meetings. So I think there is an important role. I would also argue over time, we move through it quickly, but you'll see a bullet in one of the slides that talks about ethics and AI literacy. There is work that we can begin doing, and I work with schools doing right now at the K-5 level, where they're not near a screen. It has nothing to do with screens. They're understanding what the technology is and the ethics of it. I have a dream that like 5 years from now, high school teachers are going to write thank you notes to the elementary school staff because they helped build a foundation of literacy on a thing that just didn't exist 5 years ago, right? So I think the parents are a critical role. I also think that building a foundation of AI literacy and ethics is something that we can start doing at the K-5 level too. Yep, thanks.
Mr. Krasnov.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
You bet.
My biggest concerns really with the deep fakes and the misinformation. On these portals you're talking about that a lot of the schools have access for, are those applications or AI programs able to block misinformation or no? Because I could tell you like Wikipedia and all that, there was a lot of people running around thinking they knew things that they definitely didn't know. And my fear, if we have applications and people learning from applications that are spreading information that sounds like it may be real, but in reality, it's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, there have been a handful of, it's a great question. There have been a handful of peer-reviewed studies about content on, again, Gemini, Magic School, School AI, Conmigo. There's just this crop of handful of tools. And in general, the guardrails on these tools are quite careful. They're frankly a whole lot more careful. I mean, I cut my teeth on some early days on the internet where it was very hard to navigate this stuff. So the guardrails and the sort of the curation of content around misinformation inside these school-approved systems are quite good. And not just Matt Mervis says like peer-reviewed. The other thing that's interesting is that the deep fakes in terms of like media, in Google's consumer facing as an adult, I can log on to Google and create an image of the superintendent, and I could put a yellow tie on him and a yellow jacket and a fedora, and you wouldn't be able to tell that he didn't wear a yellow jacket and a yellow tie. And what's interesting in the student facing tools and that, students can't do that. It looked good. Yeah. You're lucky I didn't do that because a number of times I will. But yeah, but in the student facing tools inside schools, they took that feature out. So I think the companies are trying to, I mean, they do understand, right, that it requires some thoughtful sensitivity about data privacy, security, because ultimately there's a lot of opportunity but challenge in the tool. So I have been pretty pleased with the guardrails around deep fakes and misinformation inside these consumer-facing tools. But that doesn't mean that a kid can't go out onto ChatGPT or Character AI or Meta and use those. And so that's another piece where the parental guidance and ethics becomes important. All really good questions.
I appreciate that. Obviously, they can go do a lot of things. Doesn't necessarily mean we want them to. So
yeah,
but thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But the board will ultimately wind up endorsing some tools, and I think you want to feel comfortable that those tools are going to do what's ethical and appropriate, for sure.
Any further questions or comments?
Okay.
Listen, I'll speak for the board. I think this was a fantastic and timely presentation. We really
Excellent.
appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me in.
And yeah, more Johnny Cash, less deepfake.
I appreciate you didn't get up. I've had some Johnny Cash fans actually get up and walk out of the room. They usually will take a deep breath and come back in. So, yeah.
Shot a man in Reno.
Thanks.
Thank you very, very much.
Yep.
Moving on to item 4B on our agenda of athletic financial presentation with Mr. Todd Parness and Gina DiGiacomo. And thank you both of you for coming and giving us a preview in Finance Committee. Looking forward to seeing the whole thing.
Thank you for having us. That was a very impressive presentation, so we'll try to do our best to follow up appropriately here.
We're waiting for Chelsea to turn our presentation into Taylor Swift and Derek Jeter. Chelsea? Where is she?
Oh, here we go. I'll get started. Oh, look at that. Okay, got it.
Press it once and you're on.
Oh, it's new. Nice. Okay, thank you. Rather than just financial presentation, we thought it was important to do that to not only show about the finances, but also the larger scope of the athletic program and how many student athletes are being served, how many are taking part, how many community members and families are really involved in the athletic program. We want to point out that athletics engage more individuals, families, and communities in a shared experience than any other cultural activity. So we thought it was important to highlight some of these things, and you're going to see in the next slide some of the numbers that we were, oh, not yet though, that we were, sorry about that, that we want to highlight. So before that though, we also wanted to point out that our athletic programs, well, we work really hard to have equity between both schools. Gina and I work closely. We talk multiple times a day to make sure we're on the same page and doing the same things. So both schools are getting the same benefits for our kids. And we also want to point out that our athletic programs are not club sports. They're not AAU programs. They are an extension of the classroom. They are education-based athletics. And what that means is we are certainly trying to be competitive and put our best team out there and win games, but the larger picture is to provide our student athletes with the proper characteristics and needs that they're going to need beyond the classroom, after high school, whether it be college or the workforce, wherever they're going with their lives, such as discipline, perseverance, teamwork, accountability, time management, all of those things that they're going to need that they learn on the playing fields. And we can't do that without the support from our community, the Board of Ed, Mr. Testani, the families involved, our booster clubs. All of those people play a huge role in what we're able to provide for our student athletes. And lastly, one thing we want to point out is that, you know, on top of those skills that I just spoke about that they're learning, we're also impacting not only their physical, but also their emotional and social development. It's a whole holistic approach that our coaches and other staff members are really looking at to provide for our student athletes. So with that being said, the next slide highlights how many people are actually impacted by these programs.
Thank you. So this is a combination of Ward and Ludlow athletic programs. So all of the numbers. So we have 140 combined teams between our two athletic programs. Our combined athletic programs have 1,703 athletic events from August to June. We have 239 coaches. I know Mrs. Jacobson likes to see the students committed in college, so there were 52 students that committed to playing college last year. But we have 1,574 student athletes between our two public high schools in Fairfield. The breakdown on the right is the single sport athlete, two sport athlete, three sport athlete, and then obviously we aggregated down the female and male athletes. But I think the most outstanding number up there is that 59% of Fairfield Public Schools high school students are participating in athletics. And we think that this slide highlights the unique roles athletics plays in our school and community. We think our presentation will continue to tell that story as we go through the presentation. But I just want to constantly refer back to the amount of students that our two high school athletic departments, again, as Todd mentioned, with the support of the superintendent's office and the Board of Education, our administrators, that we're able to provide the students in this town.
And out of all of the activities and sports mentioned up there, we also want to mention the fact that we are providing an opportunity to play in 42 different sports. So Gina mentioned how many teams we have. There's 140 teams, but that's over 42 different sports. Many of the sports have freshman, JV, and varsity programs to get to that number of 140. And we are also happy to say that out of those 42, we offer all 27 sports that are sanctioned by the CIAC, which is our state governing body for high school athletics, as well as 15 non-traditional sports that many sports or many schools or districts just aren't able to provide or don't provide. And you're going to see in this slide, the next slide, oh, sorry, just passed it. These are the CIAC sanctioned sports that we're providing. You know, and many of them mirror for both boys and girls. Some obviously aren't offered for both, like football we have obviously for boys and field hockey for girls, but it's pretty equal throughout. And you will see here on the next slide, these are the non-traditional, what we call sports that are not sanctioned by the CIAC. So they're not overseeing these sports, but we still provide the opportunity for all of our student athletes to take part in these. And you can see the breakdown of what percentage of other schools are able to offer these. So it's pretty low, and we're one that is able to offer it. So it's pretty impressive, I think.
Want me to go?
Sure.
Okay, so we have the breakdown of the finances for the athletic department. We have these, I'm getting older. There's 5 accounts that the athletic department draws from, and the school-based athletic account, the rental account, the capital outlay account, which is our equipment waterfall account, the district-based accounts, which is the coaches' stipends, custodial overtime, et cetera, and then our school-based ticket revenue account. So we just laid everything out here. It's similar to previous years in our presentation, but our school-based athletic account is basically the working funds that Todd and I use to support the athletic programs. It covers the following categories, and all of our purchases are flagged in these different categories. Go ahead and click it. And then we have non-negotiables, which we can basically expect year over year. Fees, which are league fees, dues, invitationals, game workers, which is everything from officials to those that are running our scoreboards. We have our medical supplies, reconditioning, and transportation. So as you can see here, Todd's numbers are up top. We were both given the same amount of money to spend out, and we were given a little bit extra at the end of last year, which we were able to get ahead of our uniform schedule. We were able to spend that. So you'll see our non-negotiables are a little bit lower than they've been in previous years, because about 27,000 was spent on the uniforms to kind of get ahead of the schedule for this year with the anticipated increase in transportation costs. We weren't really sure, so we got ahead of the uniform waterfall. You could see up there, Todd is 69% of his 327 was on non-negotiables. Those continue to rise every year. For example, the game workers go up 2.5% every year. That just can be expected. Just like everything else, reconditioning is going up, transportation's going up. Every invitational fee we've received has gone up at least $25, $50, $100. So those continue to rise. And then right below that's my number. You know, we're similar. We do have different needs year over year. We have different facilities that have different needs year over year. And then depending on how far a team will go into the postseason, that may require additional transportation. It may require, if your team makes it into state playoffs, that requires additional fees, additional game workers, et cetera. So that's the discrepancy between our two numbers, which is only $14,000, but nonetheless, usually we're a little closer.
I just want to add, the other thing we were able to purchase with those extra funds at the end of the year was a new timing system for track, which we are both going to be using this upcoming spring, which we're excited about. So we tried to make it a little bit more easier to see the breakdown of those numbers and how they fit into the larger picture of the overall budget. So you'll see this is the Ludlow school-based athletic account, and you'll see the breakdown of those different categories that Gina just spoke about. Transportation takes up, over a quarter of the total amount. Game workers and fees are, up there as well. And like she said, those are the non-negotiables. So those are the things that are getting higher and higher and, allowing for less and less of the, rest of the budget to be spent on some of the things that we'll get to in a second about the other side of the pie. But you'll see that ours at Ludlow and the one at Ward, they are very similar. I can go back and forth a little bit so you can see, the pieces of the pie look very, very similar. Like I said before, Gina and I work very closely together. We will have conversations about the invitationals that our teams are going to, what transportation we're using based on mileage, where we're buying certain equipment, what we're doing for laundry services to make sure we're on the same page, trying to get the best value for our dollar and making sure, we're both able to achieve that. And then, so this one kind of gives you the breakdown a little bit further of we call it designated and discretionary balance. So you'll see again, game workers, fees, and transportation takes up, roughly 2/3. And then the rest we call designated and discretionary. So it is discretionary in the sense that they're not set prices that are going up each year, but they are things that we do need to purchase, like medical supplies and uniforms. We need to, have certain things on hand for our trainers to use. We need to get our football helmets, for example, reconditioned and recertified each year. We need certain equipments and supplies like baseballs and soccer balls and things of that nature. So they're discretionary to a point, but they still need to be purchased. The amount that we're able to purchase is what really is the only thing that's questioned. And again, you'll see here's Ludlow's and here's Ward's, and they are again very, very, very close.
Okay, the school-based athletic rental account, there's always a large disparity in the numbers we provided because Ward is the sponsor for skiing and boys hockey, and Ludlow is responsible for girls hockey. And so our numbers would be very skewed. So now this year, we were able to get a co-op account. So now you can see that our individual school numbers are there's a little bit more parity between those. And then the co-op sports number is mainly, that's a lot of boys hockey and skiing at $135,000. And Todd and I are roughly the same. Mine's a little higher because I had Local Live, which was a contract that I inherited when I took the position as athletic director. That contract is now done. So we did not renew the Local Live contract, and we're both streaming off of Huddle, which is free for our families to watch. So that's important. That was an important feature of Huddle. But that's the main disparity. That and Todd has sailing at Ludlow. So that accounts for that $4,000, almost $5,000 difference. Capital no, you go.
All right, so capital outlay, that's what Gina mentioned before as the equipment waterfall. As you know, these are the high price items that, just if they were taken out of the budget each year, it would really put a burden on spending for the rest of the year. So we've developed a waterfall that we are continuing to follow. We received $20,000 each last year for the capital outlay, and I was able to spend to the penny on it, and Gina was right there as well.
Sleeping on $60.
So sleeping on $60, but it was pretty close. But
do better next time.
in the packet, there was the waterfall, I believe you have, and it shows what we spent last year and the projections for this year as well.
The district-based accounts, as we mentioned, cover athletic trainers, coaches stipends, athletic custodial overtime, and insurance. I would be remiss if I did not pause and thank the board and Mr. Testani, the superintendent's office, for our athletic trainers. They have made an unbelievable difference for the experience of our student athletes. So I just need to stop here for a second and say that. The coaches stipends, they don't really change year over year. We try to fill every open position for the coaches stipends, and there's obviously in the teachers union, there are a schedule for those salaries. Custodial overtime and insurance, those weren't really our numbers, so we didn't report on them. There's not really a lot of variability in those.
School-based ticket revenue, as we say every year, we do sell tickets when the event requires police or fire watch or additional security. Mainly, we are required to do that for football and boys basketball. We also tend to do this when we play Fairfield versus Ludlow, Ward versus Ludlow games, where we have additional people on staff because we're anticipating a larger crowds. So on those, you'll see here that we brought in roughly the same amount. And again, the amount can vary based on matchups for football and basketball, based on, the success of the programs, the weather. But, generally speaking, we bring in roughly the same amount. We also share the ticket revenue for all of the Ludlow versus Ward events, whether, regardless of who's hosting. And we do that because, sometimes certain years have a better turnout than others for various reasons. And we don't want one school to benefit. Like I said, we work together. So we split that every year to make sure we are all getting the same amount each year, year over year. And then the number on the bottom of each one, you'll see what we spent. We spent a little bit less at Ludlow on security just because of the physical makeup of our stadium. It's easier for us with the stadium situation. It's contained around the fence to have less security, where Ward has, people are walking through their large grass area from the parking lot. So Gina has extra security in that area. It's not lit well, trying to prevent issues from happening. They tend to have more security in that area. She could speak to it better than I can if there's anything that you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, no, just to Todd's point, the facility sometimes demands additional security. I also had a few large events last year that required additional police and fire watch, wrestling invitationals, dance jams, et cetera. But, just to be proactive, as Todd mentioned, my facility is surrounded by grass fields, and then people could come up through the street or through the parking lot. So I like to make sure that we have additional security all around. Obviously, our events draw a lot of middle school students, and that's great. We want to welcome that, but we want to keep everybody safe. So.
And then this is just a chart of the breakdown of what ticket revenue came in for each sport. And again, you'll see that when it's the Ward Ludlow games, we have split the revenue there, and you have the total at the bottom. And the next one is just the year over year ticket revenue.
We think that the streaming has brought ticket revenue down a little bit. I mean, it's very convenient, very comfortable to watch from home, especially on the cold nights, going out to basketball games, or some of the, it's just easier. So we do think that that's been probably the decline from the 22-23 year to 23-24. But as you can see, it's pretty much stayed consistent from last year to this year.
Then
kind of spoke to that.
Yeah, we already spoke to the variability of why revenue can be different depending on the games. So next steps for improvement. We continue to work with long range and short range planning and collaboration on facility maintenance and upgrades. You've probably noticed some of the upgrades around the facilities. Ward just got beautiful dugouts. Their lights were just installed today, I believe. They're finally up around the stadium. We just installed a new play clock at Ludlow this past week. So there's continual upgrades happening year over year. But, you know, as we mentioned before, the costs associated with the expanded sports and just the added cost of all pricing going up, not only just transportation and officials, but just everyday spending on equipment and supplies has continued to rise, is making it tough to purchase, you know, everything that we want. We are doing a good job right now of getting everything we need. Coaches are always, you know, asking for more, and we provide as best as we can. We feel right now it's okay. It's going to be getting harder with the costs continuing to rise. Right now, we are managing, you'll see here, 239 coaches. So that includes their certifications, their requirements as first aid and CPR and concussion and heat exhaustion and all the things that they need to be trained on. We've added final forms over the past year, which has been fantastic for our families to be able to register their student athletes. And it also is a great tool in reducing liability because everything is right there. It sends reminders on when physicals are going to expire. It sends reminders to our coaches on when their certifications are going to expire. It's just an easier tool for, I think, our families and coaches to use. Our coaches can bring up all that information right on their phone, right on the field to see who's eligible, to see what health conditions student athletes might have, to see who, you know, may be out because of an injury, who has a medical note, who's just been cleared. It's all right there on their phone. So it's really been a great program that we brought this past year and we're continuing to use. With that, you know, there's also added transportation, coaches evaluations. We had over 864 trips last year, which is, it's great. You know, a lot of those are regular season trips, but a lot of those are postseason trips as well. So teams are doing well, which we want. But again, it adds to the cost of those trips and the time to plan those and schedule those and everything associated with those. So we are respectfully asking for a secretary. It was in the years ago before we took these positions, each school did have 2 secretaries. I'm not sure when it went down to sharing one, but we are, again, respectfully asking for a secretary at each school to help manage some of these extra tasks that are becoming, you know, more and more each year. And then in conclusion,
I think just to piggyback on Todd and follow up, we remain committed to the belief that the athletic participation is integral to the holistic development of our students, offering transformative experiences that foster growth both on and off the field. So with the support of the Board of Education and the Superintendent's Office, Fairfield Public Schools provides one of the most comprehensive athletic programs in the state. And we are very proud of that, Todd and I, and we want to thank you as well for all your support.
any questions?
Thanks so much for this presentation and for the waterfall. And as I said in committee that, and as Gina said, that 59% number is really something to be celebrated. I've never seen it that high. I think it's a great testament to the program. And with that, Mr. Lee.
Just a quick question. The 52 kids that committed to college, is that part of also the sports that aren't CIAC sponsored also? And does that include?
It is. So we hold a signing day at both schools. We hold multiple throughout the year. And we had 52 students participate in it. So there may be more that didn't participate within those signing days, but that's the.
Or kids that walked on a Division III or II program.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that number is actually, would be higher, right?
As a walk-on, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
the 52 are those that signed the National Letter of Intent
Yep.
in November on the National Letter of Intent signing day. Football has a separate day, basketball has another day. And then we celebrate the student athletes in the spring that may be committed later in their journey of recruiting.
Yeah, no, keep up the good work.
Mrs. Jacobs.
Hi, nice to see you both. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
presentation. Great presentation. I'm going to jump right to this equipment waterfall. I just wanted to jump to the 25-26 column, and you each have $20,000, which is typically what we allocate when we created this waterfall for each school. But this year it was a little bit higher, and I don't have my budget book with me, but we actually allocated 23,000 each this year. And I know it was for a specific reason. I can't remember why. I believe it was on the co-op page for something, but I just wanted to reconcile with the superintendent or just with the both of you all that we definitely did 23,000. So if that means yay, yay. But I just wanted to bring that point to your attention.
Wonderful. We will spend it. Thank you.
Oh wait, I keep pressing the button.
The rugby uniforms.
No, I don't think so. I think that was a separate adjustment that Mrs.
Yeah, but those are
McCalley
both
made
not
to
equipment
add.
Waterfall.
Yeah, I can definitely follow up. I just wanted to point it out because I know specifically it was 23,000, and I know every penny counts in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. So, challenges is the secretary, but anything else? I guess when I look at, when I came on, we were like, let's take inventory, right? Like, let's create these waterfalls and let's make sure that we, like, the board understands what the needs are every year and for the uniforms. Is this, I guess what I'm asking is the allocations that we are doing, right? I'm not making any promise or anything. Is that working in terms of, I heard in your presentation that the discretionary funds are going down because the other actual non-negotiable costs are going up. And then maybe this is not a conversation for tonight, but as we head into January, is there a need to adjust any of this? That's just, I'm going to throw it out there for now. Doesn't mean we need an answer tonight. But as we start to see that flip, and we've been using this number now, I think since it began. So that's
Yeah, it's
gotta
been a
be,
while now.
it's been quite a while with that flat. So not saying, Mr. Testani, that I'm making any things for tonight or to this board, but do we need to think about that a little bit for going into January? Because I think this has been since 2018 or 19 flat. So that,
I think we're safeguarding the facilities a little bit differently, locking up equipment, locking
Yeah.
up goals and stuff so that we're not constantly spending. I
replacement.
just bought a new set of goals, which is on the waterfalls, over $8,000.
Yeah.
If they're left out and not locked up, one wheel's, already missing. So we're just really kind of staying on top of the equipment that we're purchasing, the track system we're purchasing and sharing because we have so few meets and they all have different days. So we're actually purchased that together and we're sharing that.
okay.
So
I have
we're-
no doubt that you're maximizing your
we are
efficiencies.
trying to be creative. I'm just saying we're making the money work to just, we will, we've had to come up with creative ways to just make sure that we safeguard the facilities. We're not just constantly asking for things, taking the nets off of the cages rather than leaving up and asking for nets constantly. So
Again, just
yeah.
throwing it out there. Thank you so much for all this work, and I'm really grateful that we have these sources for everyone to be able to follow along. And congratulations to you both, and to all of our student athletes, and to their
Thank you.
parents and families. Thank you.
So just to respond, last year there was a plan to increase their budget to reflect the increase of inflationary costs. So we all know it was a tight budget year. We were able to give the athletic department extra money at the end of the year when we had a little bit of money available. So they were able, as they mentioned, to get ahead. We also purchased the timing system that will be utilized as well. So that will be reflected in this year's budget. I think it'll be less of a cumbersome and a heavy lift as we start getting into budget season this year.
Mr. Krasnov.
I just want to thank you both for working on such a lean budget here. I know how expensive equipment can get and cycling through it. So I just want to commend you guys. 20,000 each is not a lot. If something was to come up, hopefully you guys wouldn't be shy to bring it to our attention. We don't want kids running around with faulty equipment or anything. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Maxon Kennelly.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. First, I didn't see a Wonderland on the ice. Are we not renting there anymore?
So this year we didn't have the numbers for a JV boys hockey program, so we did not rent there this year.
Gotcha. I was noticing the entire team missing, so I thought it was associated with the facility, but thank you. Secondly, and just refresh my memory, I've been told this before, when we are a site for playoffs, whether FCIAC or the CIAC playoffs, what's the financial transaction there? Because as I recall, we don't get anything for the tickets and we pay for the security. How does that work?
So when we're hosting and we're playing in the game, it's, you know, rather than a neutral site, if it's a neutral site.
I'm talking about
which
neutral
we're-
sites, not when
Oh,
we're,
if it's a neutral site and we're hosting and neither one of our teams are playing, then the CIAC reimburses for all expenses.
okay, that's what, and then what about when we are a
When-
participant?
When we are playing, it depends on the round of the tournament. So for example, on the first round of many sports, we pay for the officials because we don't necessarily sell tickets for those events. We're not mandated by the CIC to sell tickets for those. When we are mandated to sell tickets, usually starting, well, in basketball, it could be the first round. In other sports, a lot of times it's not till the quarters or semis. They get the revenue from the tickets, but they also pay the officials, and they have a set amount that they are responsible for reimbursing us for our ticket sellers, sometimes for if we have additional security or police. And we're actually working, we have a CAD board, which is the Connecticut Association of Athletic Directors, is working with the CIAC right now to try to increase that reimbursement amount.
So overall, you're not feeling like we're in a bad position through that. It's overall fair.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I know it's a sought after neutral site, certainly. But just wanted to
Yeah,
check.
it's better when we're home and hosting.
Of course.
It's less expensive than traveling and having to pay for a bus. Put it that way.
Ward hosted multiple rounds of the boys basketball last year. We hosted for schools that had home rounds but couldn't host them. And we hosted as neutral site rounds. We hosted doubleheader games in basketball. We hosted a lot.
And you felt comfortable with how the expenses all worked out?
I felt comfortable with the expenses, yes.
That sounds like a qualified answer, but there's something you're not happy with.
Well, it's extra work for them. That's
Well, she used the word offered.
But they're not, the fans don't necessarily know our expectations and what we expect in our building and our decorum and our rules of behavior. So sometimes that can be difficult to manage because those games sell out. And they're exciting and they're fun for basketball fans, but they can be taxing.
Okay, thank you. Just two other questions. Have you ever reconsidered the streaming? Because obviously, well, actually, my main question about the streaming is the adults I don't care quite about as much that they have that opportunity. Obviously, I'd love adults in the seats as well, but do you find it impacts student attendance?
I think the students come to interact with each other.
Okay,
I think
that's what I would be hoping.
I think it's fans, not families, that are streaming, like watching, just like local fans watching, and families that are far away. And we get a lot of siblings that are in college wanting to watch their siblings home. I think the students come still just to interact with the other students and to be a part of the student section and jump around and get excited and that.
The
And
student sections are amazing.
our students feed off of that for sure. I would say it's out-of-state families, out-of-state siblings, and just fans that maybe aren't invested enough to be cold and sit in a, 40 degrees at night at a soccer game, but are still interested in the outcome because FCIAC athletics is really great sports. It's, second to college.
Thank you. That's I couldn't have asked for a better answer. That's what I would have hoped to hear. And then finally was just a comment. Thank you so much for providing that feedback on the athletic trainers. Because obviously there was a lot, not that it was a huge amount of money, but it was with a lot of hopes that you asked for it. And so to hear that it is serving the students so much better, I'm delighted.
I can't think of a more impactful change.
Wonderful to hear. Thank you so much.
We're going to get a chatbot secretary if we can.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you so much. Oh wait, I forgot. Oh my God. For the work that you do and for this presentation each year, it just gets better and better. There's so much to celebrate in here, and Thank you for all of the detail to it. I just wanted to touch on a couple of comments. I loved what you did with the co-op account and how you separated that. I think it really tells a clear story of what's happening here. So thank you for making that happen. Wanted to also make a comment about final forms. I'm a super fan. It's just so intuitive and smooth, and thank you for that gift to our families and students. And it solves the mystery of when your health forms are due. So
Yes.
that's like
They
the
get
best part.
many reminders.
It's fantastic. So thank you for that, because I think there were situations in the past where students were surprised and they had to sit out either practices or games, and we obviously don't want that. Thank you also for the creative solution to the track timing system. That shared services was just brilliant, and I'm so happy that we were able to do that for the team. I do have a question about stipends. Just wondering if you have any feedback on how you might feel our stipends are in terms of whether they are competitive as compared to other districts, and if we might be losing quality coaches because of stipends, or if they're really generous. I mean, what are your thoughts on them in general?
So our stipends have not increased much over the past 15 years or so, I want to say. There was a small increase last year that was negotiated into the teacher's contract, where those live. But I think it is time to give them a more substantial increase. Not only are we competing with other districts with those stipends, but we're also unfortunately competing with club sports. It is much more lucrative to coach 3 days a week, in club soccer or lacrosse, and not have to deal with all of the certifications that our coaches have to go through, than to become a coach at one of our schools. The coaches that we have are fantastic. They are jumping through a lot of hoops to be able to coach, with certifications that the state requires. There's coaching courses, which is a 40-hour course. It is some of it online now, but it's a burden to do if you're not a teacher, especially. There's a cost associated with it. They need to keep their first aid and CPR certifications up, and the clubs, AAU programs, they're not requiring all of that. Private schools don't require all of that, most of it, but not all of it. They don't require the certification. So there's a lot that we're competing with. If we were able to provide our coaches with a higher stipend, I think it would be greatly appreciated. They certainly deserve it. They put in countless hours, not just the hours that we necessarily see on the field, but the planning and preparation that goes on behind the scenes, the scouting, the game prep, the practice planning. It's just hours and hours, and the things that they're doing in the off season for conditioning. It's just an incredible amount of time that these coaches are putting on, and we would love to be able to, pay them more for what they're doing.
No, thank you for that feedback. I think it's really helpful, and also want to join you in applauding our coaches. They're fantastic. I just have one piece of feedback, and it's on the first page where you're talking about in the first paragraph about athletics engaging more individuals, families, and communities than other cultural activities or organizations. And I just would be a little bit cautious in making that kind of statement, because I don't believe we ever want to pit like sports against our cultural activities. And I would question that actually if that statement is even true. So I just think we have to be careful. Like, we can celebrate sports and we can celebrate the cultural activities, and hopefully, is what we're doing now. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson, you got to ask about stipends?
You know it. So I'm just going to put it out there. We had put in the last contract that there would be a stipend committee, in addition to that 5% increase in the 1 year, to look at those stipends, because it's bothered me for quite a while. I don't think I can get an answer actually of the last time that work was actually put in. It is a lot of work, but that requires both, sides of that situation to come to the table. So I'm going to put it out there. I followed up on it several times. I don't know where it stands right now, if it's even convened or not yet, but it's in there to do that work. So as we come upon it, I've noted it. It's been in there, but we got to have both sides come and work on that together. So just put that out there, fully support that initiative and made sure that we got that in there last time. So thank you.
So the stipend committee, I did convene. They have met. I have not received their final report as to what their proposal is on how to resolve the situation. Last meeting was late spring, for sure.
Thanks for your continued advocacy for that specific point. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Again, thank you very much. We're very proud of what you have been able to accomplish for our schools and our students and our town, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on our agenda, items 5A through D in our consent calendar. Unanimous consent to waive the reading. I'll take a motion, put these on the table. Mr. Krasnoff, seconded by Mrs. Jacobson. Do we have any questions or comments about these policies? Mrs. Kennelly?
Well, my only comment is that I received no comments or questions, so that's why I suggested or agreed with Mr. Peterson that these might, I hope, to be okay for the consent calendar.
Any other thoughts from the board? All right, so there's a voting item, putting it out to the public. Does anyone have any comments on board's adoption and deletion of one of these policies? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? 8-0 unanimous. Thank you very much. Get to flip the page now. Item 7A, fiscal year 24-25 financial review and fourth quarter financial report, along with first read of proposed transfers memo. Mrs. Devaney. I've been informed that there's a little one in the audience that was hoping to give comment on an agenda item at this meeting and was hoping to get home for reasonable bedtime. If that's the case, and if there's no objection from members of the board, I'm happy to hear that comment if Terry, you'll step aside for just a moment. Maybe you can leave the microphone on. We always appreciate hearing from students. You know, it's the adults come up and that's also great, but we enjoy hearing from the students. So. Well, why don't you both come up together and we'll see how it goes. So just if you can fit it in 3 minutes so we can get to our other stuff. Thank you. And thank you for alerting me that I'm trying not to use my phone during meetings, so.
When the light's on is on?
Yeah, please give your name and address.
Sure, yes, of course. This is Theo Isabel Mimran. She's 9 years old and she's in grade, what grade are you in? Grade 4 at Dwight. And so that's why we're here. And we live on Cedar Road in Southport. And my wife told me this morning about this meeting. And so we decided to come. And I think just in general, someone who moved here from California, we really, really love the school. We really appreciate everything that the school does for her and my other 2 kids. And just wanted to make sure that, you know, things were going to go good for the future of Dwight. So that's pretty much it. And I think she's just, you know, generally optimistic and thankful. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for your comment. And thanks for coming out tonight. It's always an important and difficult thing to do, to come up and give comment before a board like this, but we appreciate you doing it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for the indulgence of the board. Moving back to item 7A, the financial fourth quarter and
Mr. Peterson, just before Terry begins, I just want to say thank you to Terry. She came in at a very inopportune time at the beginning of June as the year was closing, the fiscal year, and had a lot of work to close out the year. There's people that don't know, closing out the year goes well into August with the state of Connecticut and all the financial reporting. She put in many, I would say late nights, but early mornings till 2, 3 a.m. And I just want to show and express my deep gratitude for Terry for stepping up at a very difficult time and getting the job done. So thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present the 24-25 year-end financial report. When I stepped into this role on May 28th, my priority was to ensure stability and accuracy in our financial closeout process. Since that time, my work is centered on reviewing projections against final expenditures, ensuring the budget was balanced, and verifying that our financial statements are accurate, fully reconciled, and audit-ready. This year, as you're aware, the district faced several financial pressures, most notably a $1 million shortfall in special education tuition and contracted services, increased costs for substitute teachers, utilities, and tuition reimbursement. These pressures were managed through a combination of targeted savings and strategic use of existing resources, allowing us to maintain all core programs and services. An important factor in our year-end results was a surplus in the wage and benefit reserve. This reserve was originally funded as a precaution for potential costs and associated with new positions that were ultimately not filled or needed. We were able to relocate these funds to advance the district's maintenance improvement plan, supporting projects such as paving, painting, window coverings, and field improvements. Many of these projects were previously discussed by Mr. Papageorge in his presentation on the summer maintenance projects. Additionally, the funds were used to replace essential equipment where necessary for safety and instructional purposes in areas including technology education, family consumer science, music, art, and weight rooms. Notable purchase included a new automotive lift at Ludlow High School, a commercial dishwasher at Ward, and a Lynx timing system to support the athletics at both high schools. Additional savings came from lower than anticipated health insurance elections, which further helped offset overall expenditures. Strategic transfers approved by the board in May, combined with careful expenditure management, allowed the district to successfully address these financial challenges. As a result, the district closed the year with a zero balance, with all funds fully accounted for and audit ready. As noted in the enclosure, the final transfers for 24-25 include transfers from wage and benefit reserve, health insurance, special education professional expenses, budget reserves, which were applied to school expenses, maintenance service accounts, utilities, capital equipment. These transfers represent less than 0.5% of the district's overall appropriation. In summary, I want to emphasize that given the very short timeline, we were able to fully reconcile all accounts, apply surplus funds strategically to support important projects and equipment needs, and most importantly, close the year in a sound financial position. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Questions or comments from board members? Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Just to start with at least just two quick questions. First, in utilities, what was that specifically? Because that's not one we usually see.
Utilities was the electricity.
So that we used more than we expected.
Correct.
And
which had been disclosed in prior projections, but it wasn't as much as we expected it to be because we had a milder spring. We didn't need as much air conditioning, so that helped defray the projection that we anticipated when the last report was presented.
And then just as a general for the two accounts, the TO accounts, the 5 of them, how much of any of that represents items for which we budgeted for the 25-26 school year, so now we're not going to need to pay that for? I hope that my phrasing makes sense.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. So I believe that the Chromebook carts were something that were in the budget, but because of the savings that we were able to realize by purchasing them early, it was most efficient to purchase them with surplus funds. So I believe that is something that was budgeted. And there is probably some of the painting and paving that we allocated when we had some budget cuts.
We did cut paving and painting during the budget, so this was able to kind of fill that void. So it really doesn't relieve anything, but it did get the work completed that we so desperately needed. And I'm sure when we get into the waterfall, there is some items of paving that we couldn't get to, but we wish we had. Just didn't have the money to do so, but they're large projects that need our attention pretty quickly.
Thank you.
So one other comment I would like to add. So the equipment at the replacement equipment at the schools, the lift, that was a safety issue. That was not something anticipated, and it was pretty substantial because they needed to pour new footings as well to install that lift, as well as the dishwasher. That was a public health issue that the health department would have cited us if that hadn't been replaced. So those are pretty substantial pieces of equipment that thankfully we were able to do, but that were not in the budget because of the cost. Welcome.
Mr. Krasnov.
Thank you for this. I've asked this before, and I don't even know if you know the answer. Do you know if the utilities have anything to do with the public benefits, or how much our public benefits actually are charged for the year? Because that was, I believe, an unanticipated charge for the district.
I do not know, but I could look into that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson?
Old habits die hard. Through the chair, I just would request for the first reading of the transfers that we have on the back here, if we could just get detail, Mr. Peterson, through you, for what those things like fund additional supplies, like what those items were. I would like to just have it rather than these big buckets. Obviously, I know what a fund a shortfall in utilities means, but just any detail. So just, that's my request for when we vote on this. Any details, and then I would love to get the full report, but as we head into the first quarterly, I'm just going to request if instead of this shorter 20-page summary, when we go into, if we can get like the full report. I do like to see the grants and things like that. So like it's about 70 pages, I think. So just going forward, just some of my comments. But thank you very much, and you were able to finish us off with the challenges that we had last year. I know that they were great. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we're going to present this next week on the 16th, I believe, to the Board of Finance. So we have that to look forward to. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item 7B, first reading of policies to delete. Can I have some general consent to skip the reading?
Yes.
Putting 5 policies on for deletion, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Maxon Kennelly from Chair of the Policy Committee.
Sure. So this is coming off of the audit. You'll notice, I believe, all of them are 2004 policies, and that when staff was looking through them and in consultation with our attorney, all of these were deemed to be deletable, as in not necessary. I mean, for example, the first policy on tenure, this is just simply not a needed policy. It's covered by contract, covered by statute, and so that kind of is the general theme for all of them, was the designation by staff that these could be deleted as being unnecessary, and again, with attorney approval. I don't know if there are any specific ones that anybody has questions about.
Mrs. Jacobson.
I don't have any specific questions. I kind of figured, thank you for the explanation, because I figured these were contractual or statutorily in nature, therefore we didn't need to have the policy. The only one that I had a little bit of, and not even to the language that consists, but just, I don't think we have another employee growth policy. So I was just wondering if there was any conversation, like we just like to have it because we want to make a statement that we like support that, right? Sometimes it's just a philosophical, I'm not saying that particular language. Was there any discussion around that, or was it just like, we don't need it, let's cut it? You know what I mean?
No, I think that is exactly what the nature, and again, Mrs. Guernsey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's exactly the nature of our conversation. In other words, we didn't just say, okay, let's delete and move on. It was, well, obviously this is something we support, that, this is a whole endorsement of professional development, but that ultimately what we resolved was that this was not driving any behaviors on the part of the district. So ultimately, it comes back to, in terms of the vote of the board, exactly what you said. Do we feel the philosophical statement needs to be said, or do we take the position that policy is really intended to be a driver of action? And so, again, that'll be where I certainly wouldn't take it as a personal affront. If people said, no, I really like this, But ultimately, what we voted on was it was not driving any staff action.
Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you for that insight. It kind of informs my question. The organizations, is that another one? Because I read that and part of me is like, I love that. I love that intent. Is it a redundancy? And I'm feeling like it might not be. So I don't know.
No, your reaction is exactly what ours were. We love this thought that we're encouraging our math teachers to be part of professional math organizations, et cetera. But then it was explained to us that what this really was supposed to be, and again, correct me, Ms. Ingram, if I get this wrong, is essentially that we are encouraging our staff to join unions.
I would just say
That was the intent of
intent
the
of
policy
this.
and thus the advice to get rid of it, because of course now that's a whole,
the only pushback I would give to that is an association that I would really love our teachers to be a part of is our PTA associations. So I would never, ever, ever want to not encourage our staff to be collaborating with our communities. So I may not, I don't know. I'm going to read that policy a little bit more. And I like your take on it. Like I said, I don't want, but I think, yeah, interesting. Thank you.
I apologize. And something else I should also add that at Mrs. Guernsey's request, this was also run past the majority of our bargaining units to see if there were any union objections to any of these being up for deletion, and no objections were received.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, these will be brought up for a vote at our meeting on the 24th. Now, the main event. Item 7C, first reading of capital waterfall with Mr. Papa George. And if I may, I want to give a little context on this for the public. This is a process that we go through every year in advance of the town hosts, Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen have a joint capital projects summit that we attend. So that it's the one time of year that we are all around the same table and can coordinate where town projects are falling, where school side projects are falling, to make sure that everything fits and that other town bodies are aware of what our priorities are. Ordinarily, it's not this involved, but this year we have several big projects on the docket, most of which we voted through last year, either specifically on the waterfall or indirectly, if you want to say, by adopting a 10-year capital plan. But we also have new data from the Svigal's consultant study that we are processing, and our facilities committee was figuring out how best to put that on the document. And then we will be having pretty detailed discussion, I think, at this board about whether any of those pieces of information change our priorities as we voted for last year. I will say that we are making no vote or decision at this meeting tonight. This is only a first read on a document that has had some very recent updates. In fact, I hope that the current enclosure up on our website reflects the most recent version of the document. Not yet? Okay, but there are some changes that were made just tonight, corrections to some incorrect data that did not come out of the facilities committee. So that will be corrected. The document has been corrected, and the public document will also be will reflect that. So we're taking no vote tonight. I have scheduled a special meeting of the Board of Education next week, Wednesday, the 17th. I'll put out an agenda targeting 7 p.m. start. There'll be a single item agenda so that we have as much time as we need to have a discussion, to make amendments, to debate amendments, to vote them up, vote them down, as much time as we can. Since there will be a vote at that meeting, there will of course be public comment on the voting part of that. I hope if we have a manageable number of people, we can take some public comment at the beginning of that meeting. Obviously, welcome to comment tonight at our item 11 on the agenda. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Papa George to start. And I know that Mrs. Jacobson will have more comments about, unless you want to begin. Go for it.
Good evening, everyone. As you said, I think you've summed it up very well. We've made some changes to the waterfall as late as a couple of hours ago. It will be posted shortly to the website if it has not been yet. To recap, one of the large changes that happened just a few hours ago was the number was inadvertently put on the waterfall inaccurately for the for the Jennings project. So that number has been updated and it will be reflected shortly in the update. I don't know, in the past, I know we've just kind of gone section by section through to see if we just want to go through it that way and talk about any changes, answer any questions. It's up to you.
No, I think that would be valuable to just give some granular detail about this. And Mrs. Jacobson, feel free to, I'll watch you raise your hand.
So we'll go through for district-wide. One of the big changes there is that the air conditioning phase projects, now that we're not doing multiple buildings in one project, we broke those out and they've been moved to their individual school lines. So it helps us understand what year and where those schools will be handled. We also removed the phasing numbers, which were originally on the waterfall for those schools, because they've been moved around a few times. So now the phase numbers didn't line up with the project themselves in the years. So that was a big change for the overall for the district-wide. I don't know, you want to take questions each section?
Yeah, I think section by section. So
Okay.
anyone have questions about the changes to the district-wide section? Seeing none, please continue.
All right. I apologize, I'm losing my sight. So one of the things that we added to Burr Elementary School is the security vestibule, which we've done in other buildings and we've continued to do throughout the district. When there's projects at a building, we do a security vestibule update. Burr is one of the schools that has not received one of those yet, and from a recommendation from the facilities committee and the administration, we broke those out and we put them onto the waterfall. And during some internal administration discussions, it was determined that it would be best, if possible, to try to get all the elementary schools finished with this security update at this year. So that's why you'll see that under Burr on the waterfall as a project that would be approached this coming year.
Mrs. Flynn.
This is through the chair to Mr. Testani. Was there any, that is a little bit of a change with the vestibules? Was there any recommendations given that indicated that change?
I just felt, just given the current climate, that it would be best if we could try to address these all at once.
Okay.
And put those in this coming years.
No,
year.
I appreciate the movement. I appreciate the change. I would just echo to you and Mr. Papa George to just be prepared for questions about it. Is it a large shift in the waterfall? To combine, they were placed out. So just to be prepared.
Just to, I'll jump in. The discussion with the town and harmonizing our waterfall with their waterfall is going to be an ongoing process. So one of the things that we will be doing with these documents is evaluating what the board's current priorities are. And if the board does not amend those off in, say, the next meeting, then my job going to the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen will be to advocate for those projects to be added to the waterfall.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments on Burr? No.
If
Ms.
we're
Jacobson?
going to go section by section, I'll just give a broad conversation on the vegetable projects. Not only were they moved up all into this year, 2 additional new ones were added, but one is Tomlinson, that's not exactly this year, but the costs also were increased. So even though they were moved closer up, there wasn't like an escalation drop off. They actually went up based on the waterfall from last year. So I just wanted to point that out. So I'll piggyback on what Mr. Papa George states and section by section if I can lend any further.
Well, and if I can ask Mr. Papa George this specific question, have the numbers gone up because of our experience with other similar projects?
They have, because of the 3 we are currently working with. That's what drove those numbers.
Thank you. Any more Burr comments? I'm not sure if anyone's interested in Dwight, but let's talk about that.
So you will see that from the Svigals report, based on what this board approved as a project for that building, we pulled from the Svigals report the concept, and we plugged the report's numbers into our waterfall. That's why they're browned out there, because they are not our working numbers. They were actually pulled from the report and plugged into there.
Any questions or comments? I'll ask about the footnote, so you list Vigal's concept 1 and then note 1. I noticed in the footnote, it says possible additional percentage reimbursement. Could you give some context around that?
Yes, so as many of you know, there's a 10% deduction in reimbursement from the state when you do a new build versus a renovation addition project. The thought is there is a possibility, if you can show that the project would have cost more or been unable to be done if it was a renovation alteration, then the state will consider and bump the reimbursement back to the full amount, which is for Fairfield currently 27.5%.
And for clarification, the number in the total reimbursement column for Dwight line 71, does that incorporate any additional, or is that?
That incorporates the 15% bump for an ECC.
But not this theoretical other?
Not the theoretical. Okay. That's why it's noted there.
Just calling it out as a possibility.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other? Mrs. Flynn?
Just a follow-up to that, the information that will be needed for the state to make that case that it would be better to build than continue on with a 50-plus-year-old building. Do you think you have enough of that in the feasibility study and the previous studies that the board has compiled for Dwight?
I think we have a good amount of information with this, and then leading into the building committee and getting design work done with the building, that will kind of hold that all together.
And I know that a lot of us asked for those backup appendix pieces of data. You guys have access to all of that continuing, right, as needed?
You mean the studies in the Vigal's report?
Yes.
I do not have access to those. Angelos may have access to those. I believe the Board of Selectmen was going to try to get us access to those.
Which ones are we looking?
So all the backup documents that were referenced in our fees, the traffic study, all those,
Site reports.
we didn't have those raw documents. We only had the kind of summary documents. A few of us asked about it. And I just think it might be compelling to have, in a backup document, if especially we're making that case to the state.
I can double check with the First Selectman and see if they are.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
On the town website?
Oh, well, then you should have access on the town website.
I was just going to say, I don't know if they were there, but they did say they were going to get them posted.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Lee?
I think when we look at this, Dwight, when we talk about the additional reimbursement, we have to just be careful. We're not there yet. I think we'll have a better understanding of the whole situation once the building committee, which has been established, gets approved, actually gets some type of direction and some seed money to start moving forward, so we can actually come back with better, more accurate numbers, whether it's higher or lower, whatever situation. But at that time, you'll be able to know potentially what your reimbursement would be.
Mr. Krasnov?
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, the thought of the committee to add the asterisks was from some of my questions to Vigal's, and also questions we gave Silver Petroselli last year about how they felt in dealing with the state, whether higher funding would be available, asking experts, and they both seemed to feel we had a compelling case. So we didn't want to completely leave that off. It sounds like it is a viable option, and we thought it was definitely a talking point to have in here.
Thank you. Mrs. Flynn, do you have another question? Any more questions on the Dwight line of this project? There's public comment at the end of the meeting. This is time for the board to discuss. Thank you. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Holland Hill.
There's no changes, no projects currently listed on the waterfall for Holland Hill. We are about to enter into the audit phase of the project that was completed there. So we're moving along.
Any questions on Holland Hill? Seeing none, we can move on to Jennings.
Jennings. So Jennings also received a vestibule line for a project in there. We put that in there as a placeholder. It's listed with a $1 project cost, which is just required technically for our waterfall in order to show the year and mark it. So that's why you'll see the dollar in there. Additionally, there's also the renovation and addition project. This was a number that we pulled part of from Spigal's report. And then we also used the current ed specs for Dwight as a roadmap to establish a cost to do the other needed renovations and additions to Jennings for the deficiencies in that building, which are found in our 10-year, our long-term facilities plan. So that is where we combine those numbers. We're able to come up with the Svigales project, the deficiency project, and that's where you see the line today with the cost of the project and potential reimbursement.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Jacobson if she wants to add any more to this, because this is a topic of some interest and will be a subject in our discussions with the town, because this number is substantially higher than the Svigals 2A report that was in the report that came out.
Yes.
If we can.
So just for context and for the public, last year, the board had adopted a project at Jennings where it would get its whole building renovation with its deficiency K-5 program spacing, just like every other school, and the consideration for a 5-classroom ECC addition as well. The complicating factor became that the town did not look at what we voted on. The town just looked at Jennings getting a renovation to its existing building with ECC, but no program deficiency space. So that is where the discrepancy came in. So in the Svigals report 2A, what you have is Jennings getting a basic renovation, no program deficiency space for its K-5 kids, and then 5 new classrooms for preschool kids. So as a committee, we didn't change what the board voted on last year and just used current information that we were able to ascertain. And Mr. Papa George told us that he had reached out to Colliers, Gilbane, Svigals, and all of those companies that Fairfield Public Schools is currently working with in order to ascertain a better number from last year's Silver Petroselli estimate. And ironically, they're almost, they're very, very close in terms of the numbers for the projects for Jennings between last year and this year, getting an estimate, updated estimate for our consideration. But we did not change what the board voted on last year by putting in any type of Svigals project. We simply updated the waterfall as the board had voted on it last year, of course, adding new projects and new numbers and things like that. But so that is the context for Jennings. And the waterfall, we've had a lot of meetings at facilities since the summer, and after getting this Svigals report, putting in a lot of time. So there's lots of different versions of this roaming around now. And then even tonight, what was posted, for some reason, there was a mix-up with the Jennings number, so the backup that's posted is not correct for Jennings. We have been issued a new waterfall this evening from Mr. Papa George, and it hasn't been posted, but I know Mr. Peterson has just said that he will post it. So there was a significant difference between what was posted for tonight. And just so that I can read it out, if you don't mind, Mr. Peterson, you were going to do that? Okay. The Jennings renovation and addition project actually is on this waterfall for 49,044,878. Total reimbursement at 13,610,414. For a net to town or net to district, 35,434,464. So that's obviously much different than what was posted for tonight, but not significantly different from our current approved waterfall from last September. So that is the context, and I'm happy to answer any further questions on it. But we absolutely, as a committee, did not want to be changing what the board voted on. And of course, it's up to this body to do what they would like to do.
Because we're talking about the difference between the Svigals report. The Svigals report, concept 2A, has a minimum estimated municipal cost of $24,032,483. But again, that lacks the deficiency spaces that are in our capital plan.
Yes.
Mrs. Flynn, do you have a question?
Yes, I can take a wild guess, but I think it might be helpful for the public and the other town bodies to just hear. This is the first large-scale project, and as long as I can remember, that doesn't include seed funding. It's just the project cost slated in. Can you kind of speak to, we're not,
So
through the chair to Angelus or Mr. Papa George or Ms. Jacobson?
we would asked for seed money for this project. It doesn't show on the waterfall because, again, we were pulling part of the number from the Svigals report, so we wanted to be able to dig in better to get a seed money number, but we wanted to be able, for the presentation tonight, to be able to give a total project cost.
Thank you.
Ms. Jacobson?
I assume you were asking about Jennings, but if you were asking at Dwight, that's because it's not on here because we asked for that last year. Oh, Jennings, okay, all right, sorry. Yep.
Sorry, it's just the first time we aren't seeing it on the waterfall. I think you might get the question from other town bodies, so it's always helpful to have it here first.
Mr. Krasnoff?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna still need seed funding, even when we ask questions, not everything is known in terms of, hazardous material, where in the building would be able to go. We literally were basing it off the project we already approved, and we kind of extrapolated the price per square foot it would be to add that square footage, so we could put a number in here. But yeah, obviously, there would need to be some seed funding and digging in if that's ultimately what the board decided to go with.
I will add that I attended a meeting at Town Hall on Friday with First Selectman, with the Board of Finance Chair, with everybody. And they were very complimentary of the idea of seed funding. I don't think that's going away. And obviously, that's something we will need to go negotiate in terms of the cash flows, which is a separate related discussion. Ms. Flynn?
I was about to say, that's my only follow-up, is that we've kind of come to realize that cash flow document is actually more, to me, insightful and impactful. So whenever we're moving even a few $1 million around, that's enough to cover a turf field, that's enough to cover a playground replace, you know what I mean? So I just want to be mindful that that is something we're going to see pop up in a cash flow year, correct?
Correct.
If it moves, yeah. Mr. Peterson?
Yes, Ms. Jacobson?
For the seed funding, though, the town spent $1 million looking at these buildings and these properties and doing borings and soil testing and things like that. So I think that's a conversation to be had, like what's left to do, right, on the ones that were actually already studied. And I'm not saying we didn't get schematic design, so that might be a piece of it, but there shouldn't be a need for the same amount considering the work that was just done with $1 million on the properties that were assessed.
That is,
And I certainly wouldn't want to stall on anything to repeat a process that we
Yep.
just did, right? So,
no, absolutely. And that is why for Jennings, we did not break it out because
Yeah.
we felt that just doing our standard breakout was not necessary for this.
great,
So
awesome, thank you.
And Angela, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think from the town standpoint, I think they're definitely looking at this Figals report as a resource, as important work that has been done that they want to inform other parts of the process on all the scenarios.
absolutely.
Mr. Krasnoff?
Just to elaborate a little bit on the vestibule thing, the reason we put a placeholder is most of the renovations, alterations, ECCs that we all kind of see, whether it's on the either report that we got or in the ideas we have in terms of the space, will not necessarily touch the vestibule area. So we could still work on the vestibule. So it could be in here as a separate project, pretty much no matter what the board as a whole decides to do on Jennings.
Well, I think what this board decides to do as a whole is what we would be pitching to the town. But that being said, we can discuss the future of the vestibule projects. Mrs. Maxon Kennelly?
Just one quick question. Something that in the Svigals presentation that took me by surprise because I've never heard it before and would be a stark deviation from our current practice with buildings was when they remarked on the idea that Dwight, and then they said it kind of offhandedly with Jennings, is a building from the 60s, and therefore they believe that in looking to the future, you need to tear them down and build them new. And that was, in other words, that idea of don't use current walls and build to the outside of it. But nope, no good anymore. Scrap. Again, I'm obviously not saying it in the industrial terms, industry terms that they were using. Did that factor into this creation of the Jennings number? Is that now going to be the adopted position of Fairfield Public Schools going forward, or is that not a conversation you had in facilities? Again, I'm looking primarily, to Mrs. Jacobson at the impact on the number.
So this is a renovation, not a renovate like new. And I believe, and I don't want to speak for Svigals by any stretch of the imagination, I think that the concerns at Dwight were that the foundation is, and which would be the same for Jennings as well, over 60 years old, but there's just seems to be more moisture for whatever reason at that Dwight site. So it
And
was more,
that's why I didn't bring
yeah.
it up with Dwight, but it was, they made it as I don't quite want to say global statement of simply, don't take these buildings from the 60s and build them for the next 20 years. You want to build them for the next 50. And again, this was just something we've never discussed, never heard before. And I'm not even sure that you were able, because you had to have 2 very quick meetings to factor that into your discussion. But I'm just wondering where that.
We didn't get anything from them on a new, so
Okay.
it's not even something that I would try to do in a committee level. You know what I mean? Yeah. Unless there was some direction from the board to do that.
I just for context, I want to say that the bulk of our recent renovation projects have used existing facilities and expanded upon them, changed the interiors. Dwight is, even in a renovation scenario, going to be a more extensive renovation if we chose to go that path than we've done with any of our other buildings. We've torn down buildings in the past where there's been systemic issues. But this, in a lot of phases of this work, we're looking at new things, which does not mean we shouldn't do them. We shouldn't have discussion, but recognize when we are kind of stepping into newer territory. Mr. Krasnoff.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, I think some of it was the scope of the work that needed to be done. So it seemed in the Dwight project that pretty much every wall foundation needs to be touched and done, versus on the Jennings side, it seemed like that wasn't the case. And a lot of the previous renovations we've done, that had not been the case. So I think that's the big differentiation. Now, obviously, the building committee should bring someone in, and with Jennings, I think the same thing should be looked at for sure, because I personally feel we shouldn't be adding to a building that isn't in good shape. But if they find it's in good shape, but these numbers are based off using pretty much the current structure.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I didn't even bring it up with Dwight because that's a completely different discussion. This was just a philosophical, it had nothing to do with the state of the building. It was, their comment was solely connected to the date of the building and just the general all-encompassing statement that we shouldn't be renovating those buildings. Again, they didn't phrase it quite like that, but it was just something that really jumped out at me because I have never heard that in any consultant we've used before. And I'm not saying it was wrong. I get where they're coming from. But again, I don't need to keep belaboring it, but again, I was just wondering if it factored into the conversation at all.
Thank you. Any more comments on Jennings? All right, we can move on to McKinley.
So for McKinley, I apologize. Oh, this is the first one. I was kind of skipping over the 25, 26 year, just they're on there, but they're already bonded and being performed or completed. So you'll see added to Jennings is a security vestibule, as we've spoken about some other elementary schools, and the boiler burners, which have been on there. So there was nothing addition beyond that.
McKinley, not Jennings.
McKinley. That is
They said
McKinley.
Jennings.
Well, we finished up Jennings, we moved on to McKinley. All right. Does anyone have any questions on McKinley? All right, we have another newish school in Mill Hill.
Mill Hill.
Recently renovated.
Recently renovated. I won't speak for the building committee because there's a member here, but it is completed and going into the audit phase for the state as well. Oh, sorry.
Any questions on Mill Hill? All right, moving on to North Stratfield, and it's a $2 renovation in
$2.
2036, 2040.
Yes, there is a $2 renovation on that, and I apologize, that was a typo. It should have been a $1, like I said, as a placeholder. And you'll also see
North
there's a
Stratfield's
note,
worth it. It's okay, we can splurge.
you can splurge for the second dollar. You'll see there is also a note on that, which is at the end of the report that mentions that because of the distance and how far out that project is, to put a realistic number on it at this point would be very difficult.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Jacobson.
So I'd like to talk about North Stratfield a little bit. So when we met on August 26th, I did kind of go over where we were with you all, and that I had raised in committee several meetings ago that I felt that that given that this goes out to 2040, that North Stratfield was due to get a home on here. We knew when we passed our 10-year plan last year that work at North Stratfield and a little bit of work left at Sherman were not able to fit within the 10-year, and that they were going to be beyond 10 years. So at this point, we're, going out to 2040 here. So the committee agreed and that we had put this renovation and addition. So similar at North Stratfield is renovation and deficiency space at North Stratfield, except North Stratfield becomes interesting like Osborne Hill in the sense that they've already gotten their HVAC. So it's not as simple of a calculation, and they've also gotten their vestibule. So they're like partially done. So those are going to be a little bit more complicated. At our meeting on yesterday, all these meetings, there had been a number put on. And again, Mr. Papa George using this Fagals information and our contractors to say, well, if it was done today, what would it be? And then you escalate it out all those years, right? And then we have a conversation about, well, that's based on today's cost per square foot, and that's based on today's, right? And then you're just adding these like number of year of escalation. So I just wanted to explain to the North Stratfield community that it was important to put it on here. There was a little bit of a disagreement about keeping some sort of a number, which this board has always done. Like, it may not be the perfect number, but it's on here, right? It's our best guess at this time. And it wasn't I wouldn't say a massive dissent, but the majority of the committee was like, it's so far out, we're basing it on numbers that we know, so let's take the number out. I felt it would be good to keep it on, but I just wanted to explain to the North Stratfield community, we see you, we know it's out there, and don't take the $2 as an offense. It was a thoughtful decision to make sure that when we do have a number, that there is some time actually put into that number by the board, and that we can get to something that makes sense rather than using today's information and trying to push that forward. And then at North Stratfield as well, there are actually 3 alarms on this waterfall at North Stratfield, Woods, and Osborne Hill for a fire alarm project. And if the board recalls that at the August 26th meeting, I had inquired about the HVAC building committee and if they might have a balance of funds. They are on here because with no dollars attached to them right now, because we're still waiting on an answer to that. The HVAC projects, phase 1 had fire suppression and protection components to it, as well as the vestibule components. They weren't just HVAC IAQ projects. So my brain was like, if there's any money left over, could it help with the alarm? I don't know that that's the case. Otherwise, we would need to add dollars to those 3 alarms. But we wanted to put them on here today for you, signal that they are work that need to be done. We didn't put any dollars because we don't know if we're going to need dollars. We're still waiting on that information. I hope we won't need to do it, but I can't promise you that. So just wanted to, since this is the first one that's come up for North Stratfield, that's also the same case for Osborne Hill and Woods Middle. Okay.
Thanks for that context. That said, any questions or comments on North Stratfield? Mrs. Flynn.
I'll just say thank you for the $2. More from just a tenet of myself, and I think a few board members, is that this waterfall, we used to hear it quite often called as like a runway. And I always took a little bit of contention with that narrative because I believed it was always a track. And I think if you have a track, you need indicators along the way. So whether it be $2 or whatever number you want to pop in from your educated experience, knowledge that I don't have, Mr. Papa George, I would appreciate. I just think any indicator on here that we do have something to do at North Stratfield is important, the same way it is for Jennings, for Osborne Hill, for Dwight in the past. I think anytime we forget about what's in front of us, we get a little lost. So I appreciate the committee's thought and time, and I'll take the $2 over nothing. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on, Mr. Krasnoff?
I just wanted to briefly add to why some of us decided not to put it on. As we escalated it out over all those years, the number got way bigger than it would be today. And we were just afraid to put a large number for a project sitting out there that may not realistically be an accurate number. Now, it could and it could not be, but it's so far out and the district needs could even change by then that it's kind of a tough thing to put on the waterfall.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Lee.
I'll piggyback that. I mean, it was a tough decision, but based on past experiences, the things we've done, I still remember as a parent at Holland Hill, it was a $10 million project way back when on the waterfall. And when it actually came to fruition, everyone thought it was $10 million and it became what, 35, $40 million. And no one understood how come it went up so much in cost. It's been staying on the waterfall every year, never changing. So, and it's not fair for the public or the other boards that we have to work with to stick a number on there that may not change because we're not getting accurate numbers in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Just one point though, to Mr. Lee's point about that number being surprising. We also used to do the waterfall very differently. Like now we do such a better job of every year we're looking at it and we are requesting updated escalated costs and accurate. You are I'm not saying you're dating yourself, Mr. Lee, but you know, that was at a time where, you know, Mr. Cullen would come up here and openly say this was the number we created 5 years ago. And we didn't change it and we kept that number as the placeholder. And I would just say if, again, because I do see some value in putting a number out there and we change it every year. So, and that live change I think is fairly simple to explain. It reflects escalation. And again, very stark contrast because you're absolutely right. We used to put the numbers on and never change them till we came up on the project. And then it was indeed very startling.
All true. North Stratfield, any more questions? Can move on to Osborne Hill.
So in Osborne, as you know, in the facilities long-term facilities plan, Osborne did have some deficiencies as well. So we did put the opposite of Jennings. We did work out the calculations for what it would cost in today's dollars and escalate that out because it really did belong on the waterfall. Svigal's report had we did not pull anything from the Svigal's report because they only had an addition for a possible ECC location. They did not anticipate touching anything within the current building. So that's why we used the numbers and we calculated out a price for that. And it does not tie back to anything on the Svigal's report. That being said, we also have the fire alarm system there, as Ms. Jacobson said. It's one of the 3 that we are hoping to get able to be done under the current project going on at these 3 schools.
Questions or comments on OHS? Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
This is more a comment and I'm not looking for any feedback on it, but obviously the one thing that's completely missing from this, and I don't think we have the time to do it. I think it would be a too short-changed of a conversation, is the ECC conversation. What are we definitively committing to? Because obviously, as Mr. Papa George just said, it's not included here on Osborne Hill. Obviously, from the report, you know, nothing on giant steps in here. And I'm not advocating for anything. I'm simply saying that this, and I actually appreciate what the facilities committee did. I would not have expected them to change the charted course of the district at this time, but that doesn't mean that we are relieved of what's going to be an important conversation because we're not just deciding Dwight. We are setting out the direction of the district for decades to come. And so I guess the only question I have there would just be to the chair, Mr. Peterson. I don't know if you have a vision and you might not yet. How does that conversation take place?
Honestly, I think we need to have at least elements of that conversation at our meeting on the 17th. You know, one of the reasons why I wanted to set it aside and give it hours was because, as you say, how we proceed on these projects impacts a lot of moving parts to all these discussions. We're bringing together a lot of debates that we have had for as long as I've been on this board, and I'm sure as long as you've been on this board. So it definitely needs to be given its due. And so you know, again, I think it's gonna matter in our final decision next week what we think as a board on multiple sites versus fewer for the ECC. Mrs. Jacobson.
Since I assume that we're voting on the 17th, don't we need to have that conversation today? in order to know how people
There's-
might vote?
So there's no motion on the table. So there's no amendment that people are proposing at this point in time. If
No,
you
I
would
meant
like-
the discussion about.
No,
the-
if you, look, if you would like to begin on that, that's fine. I did not think that we were going to end this discussion just by going through all the items on the
Okay.
waterfall and close up. So I really want to, I want to make sure we have time for board members to make comments as well as members of the public. Mr. Kresneff.
So to elaborate to that, I also thought we would start the conversation tonight, so at least our committee would possibly have some time to look at some of these, depending on some of the feedback from the board and, help flush some of this out. But in addition to that, in terms of Osborne Hill, I'm not going to throw out any amendments now or numbers or anything, but we did have a little bit of a number discrepancy, some of us at the committee level, and how to come about the number. I came up with a little bit different number that's in here. But the number in here is the project we have slated that we all voted on, with the annex being completed with the locker room. So in keeping with what we had been following, whatever the voice of the board that had already been approved is exactly what we priced. But I do have some other ideas in addition to that.
Any other Osborne Hill questions, comments?
I would just say it's the same complication as North Stratfield, not complication, I mean, to our benefit. It has gotten its vestibule and its HVAC upgrade, so it reduces the cost of it getting its renovation and basically deficiency spaces at this point. So, thank you.
Move on to Riverfield, another relatively recently renovated school.
All the project, you'll see a ton of projects at Riverfield. No, there's nothing added at this point. And again, it's recently renovated just prior to my time here.
Any Riverfield questions or comments? All right, we can move on to Roger Sherman.
Roger Sherman has the added vestibule in there. You'll see there is no project listed for a renovation and addition. There are still some deficiencies listed in our long-range facilities plan. Those have been smaller projects that we've been actually able to start chipping away at over the years. So over the last few years, so we will continue to do that. And we felt that being able to do that, we should be able to meet the deficiencies within the building without making it a capital project.
Ms. Maxon Kennelly.
Just one quick question. This is just for purposes of review. After the 3 phases, I know we had talked about a 4th phase. Can you remind me, what did we not do?
I don't have, I should have known you. You have the book.
Sorry, I didn't bring that with me. I know the stage was an issue around phase 2 or 3, and then I can't remember what happened with it. But I didn't know if that was the only thing.
Well, I mean, there are deficiency spaces listed in here, actually.
And obviously, we still have a portable there as well.
Yeah, there was, provide the instrumental music classroom room, the club, there was deficiency spaces in there, but in the beyond the 10-year, that gave us some of the, you just hold, please. Let me get to it.
I'm just thinking they might need a.
There was some ADA
Oops.
compliance, there were some ACT ceiling and lights, BMS controls, some phone system upgrades, alarm.
So through the chair to Mr. Papa George, everything that Mrs. Jacobson is saying, you feel does not need to be on the waterfall.
It
Will-
does- It will be, I believe that we can get them done. We've done a few of them already. The current administration there feels that using the gym, not the gym, I apologize, the APR stage has been suitable for them. They did not want to see the addition off the back of the gym like we've done at typical places for a raised performing platform. They felt that utilizing the building in the way that they currently are works for them in their current state. Again, that could always change. There's always room for change on that. And currently, it's always current administration. There was talk about a computer lab. We actually
Mhm.
had over the summer, we had a architect go out and look at the library space. And there is the ability to put up some walls and do some reconfiguring in there. Small in-house project that could ultimately lead to having a computer space at Roger Sherman School.
Okay. Somehow it feels like they're getting gypped a little bit, but obviously leave that to you, or obviously the facilities could have stick the dollar bill out on the, far right column.
Yeah.
But again, obviously if you can do it without doing that, that's fine, but I just, I hope our standard isn't they can manage, so I just want to make sure that it's fair. I don't know how else to say it. Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson.
Since there had been 3 phases, like a lot of the bigger items like the HVAC and, things like that had already been done. And when people are asking why, maybe not understand why Sherman is in phases, it's because it's in the FEMA zone, it's in a flood zone. So we can only do so much at a certain time, just so people don't understand that, like, why is Sherman getting multiple phases? It's because we can only do small dollar amounts at a time at that building. What I will say is that both, for Sherman and Osborne Hill, we did talk about the annexes for both those, because those 2 schools have annexes and they're going on, getting up there in their 20-somethings. So we wanted to make sure, like, is there anything with those annexes buildings that we need to be aware of? Do they just last forever? Or like, or they need a new roof? I don't know. But Mr. Papa George said that both of them don't need anything for those annexes either. So we were thoughtful in making sure that we understand that we have 2 schools that have these annexes, so.
Yep. So as we spoke about in committee, the annexes are brick and mortar buildings. It's not a fancy portable. It's a brick and mortar building. So we would expect to have a license of a standard brick and mortar building. With that said, there are maintenance issues with them, roof replacements, just like our current buildings. We do those when needed. The roof is not due on the annex. There's none reported with issues on the roof there. That said, we've done some cleanup on there. We replaced the sewer ejector pumps on both annexes this past summer because one went and the other one was on its way out. So we felt it important to get ahead of that rather than doing it as an emergency. So we were able to do insignificant maintenance, but it was still done and needed to be done. Yep.
Mr. Krasnov?
Also, just to elaborate, we did ask about Sherman and we didn't want them to feel like they were getting gypped. It's just, according to Mr. Papa George, a lot of the projects are smaller projects, so to put them on here, when they, like, maybe 1 or 2 will be done this year, another 1 or 2 will be done next year or the following year, it didn't make sense to put it in a home because they were the much smaller projects and we typically don't put those on the waterfall. So that's the explanation. It's not that we're not going to try to do stuff there.
All right, let's move on to Stratfield.
Stratfield has the entrance vestibule again and the HVAC BMS controls upgrade on the project. That's not a new project. It's been on the waterfall. For those that don't know it, Stratfield Elementary School is one of our only BMS control systems that's different than all the other schools. So it creates we've had issues with it, and it also creates a maintenance issue with it's a proprietary system, so only one company in Connecticut can work on it. So the thought was to eliminate the problems that we have and at the same time bring it in line with all the other district buildings.
Stratfield, questions or comments? All right. Let's move on to ECC Ward.
ECC Ward, we eliminated the temporary housing project on this, and I'm sure Ms. Jacobson would like to go into more detail on that, so I won't steal that from her.
Temp location 1, temp location 2, those babies were taken off in this ECC at Ward vestibule specifically.
Was added.
So we wanted to make sure that the name, so just, that's all that happened there.
Questions or comments? Oh, Mrs. Flynn. Oh, sorry.
Just a quick comment. If that is going to be the new home for or Early Childhood Center, I would maybe just add dash ward. And then once we determine the rest of the home, I don't know how we're going to
As ECC Ward security vestibule.
No, it says underneath. I'm saying in the title, are we planning on keeping ECC altogether? Are we, I'm kind of plopping this out into everyone's brain as we discuss locations for the ECC over the coming dates. I think where we kind of strategically place those is going to become important, especially since we have Ward, we have, different locations and things that are different places. So just a note.
Ms. Maxon Cannelli, Joe?
Just one quick observation. Curious why this vestibule project is so much more.
If you're familiar with the layout of the ECC at Ward, you're
Are you
basically.
gonna have to bump out?
You're basically entering into a hallway. So there will be some reconfiguring inside the building to make it more suitable for what we have. Not necessarily bump out, but bump into that hallway area more.
Ms. Flynn?
I'm familiar with that location. Are you building out that office as a part of the vestibule project? I know basically the administrative office for that is just right in the center of the hallway. Are you planning on doing any kind of refurbishment to that office space as well?
It did not include changing that layout or footprint. This was more for the security and safety upgrades.
Okay, thank you.
All right, how about we move on to Fairfield Woods Middle School?
Fairfield Woods Middle School is, as you know, finishing the indoor air quality project. The big change on this one was from after talking with the facilities committee, I had conversations with our in-house and outside HVAC people, and it was determined they went and looked at the boilers, and we also pulled up the reports from the boilers and the inspections over the last few years, and there was some concern of the aging of them, but there was not a concern where they had to be done right away. That being said, there is more of a concern with the condition of the bathrooms at Woods, so we were able to comfortably switch those two projects into years on the waterfall. So the bathrooms moved up a year and the boilers moved back a year. I know the facilities committee asked if we would be comfortable pushing the boilers back even further. After conversations today, I don't think we would be comfortable doing that at this point.
Woods, questions or comments? All right, moving on to Roger Ledlow Middle School.
Roger Ledlow has a fire alarm project, which is currently going on, as you all know. And then the new project here is, as you talked about earlier, paving. This is the front parking lot at Roger Ledlow Middle School. Typically, we do not ask for bonding for paving projects. This was because of the size of this parking lot and the fact that you'll see down the road more Ledlow High School front parking lot, which sits directly across the driveway from this parking lot, are both in very poor condition. So our thought process behind it was adding both of these projects, which we did independently on the waterfall, but tackling them as one project with the cost of just under $1 million to do both of them. It was something we were comfortable putting onto the capital plan and asking for bonding for. I do know the town has raised in the past some concern about doing a 20-year bond on a paving project. That being said, when they are referencing paving, they are talking about roads which get a lot higher usage than our parking lots. So we would be comfortable thinking that a 20-year bond on a parking lot versus a road would not be as much of a concern.
Mrs. Jacobson.
This isn't specific to this, but just for the board's consideration, all of these items, the smaller items, we did have some conversations, like if the HVAC committee can't do the alarms, do we want to put some of the smaller alarms in the operating budget? Like for last year, we had several. We had the elevator in there, we had the alarm system, we had a safety and security upgrade in our operating, and then it got moved out. So just as I'm not saying doing anything tonight, we're not voting or we're not making amendments tonight, but as we proceed, there are smaller items on here that we could think about, maybe that would go into an operating budget. So I'm just throwing that out there, as these paving projects were one of them. The alarms were the other one. So just didn't make any changes ourselves, just sharing that smaller items for operating instead of bonding.
Fair point. Any questions, comments on RLMS? Right. Gideon Tomlinson, Middle School.
Tomlinson Middle School. So The big change on this one, because as you can see, most of these are already being completed, is the ADA safety vestibule upgrades. This is a larger project than the other vestibules because, as you all know, the terrain at Tomlinson makes it ADA very difficult. So in order to do a secure vestibule there, we will have to establish possibly a new main entrance for that building, whether it's use the existing and figure out ADA compliance to get into it. I know right now we currently use more of the back door where the parking lot is on that, but again, you're entering a stairwell midpoint, so you either have to go up or down from that point. So there's a lot of ADA compliance issues with that building. I'm not saying it's not ADA compliant because we do have an ADA entrance on the lower level. So it was just going to take, it's going to take a larger look at that building to make sure we're hitting the safety requirements and still ADA compliant.
Questions or comments? All right, let's move on to Fairfield Ludlow High School.
Fairfield Ludlow High School. Look. So we have the artificial turf replacement. What we added to that was we put artificial turf, and then we also added the bathrooms there are in very poor condition. We wanted to put that I put that on there as possibly adding to that project as it gets closer to include some type of remodel in the field house bathrooms there. That being said, I've also, being asked under duress, I should say, from the facilities committee, I visited those bathrooms today and with a project leader and a construction leader. And we're going to look at, there may be some options to do some work in those bathrooms sooner than later out of our operating budget to get them cleaned up.
Thank you.
So, but there was no dollars added for that. So just to
was-
be clear for everyone, there was no dollars. The number that is in this waterfall is just to resurface the turf. So,
That is correct. We just didn't want to lose place
Yeah.
of that.
Any other questions or comments? I mean, we had talked about in our 826 meeting, the changes to the longer run AC numbers.
yes. So, yes. Yay. A couple things. So again, for Ludlow, you've got that second part of the paving project that is a new item that would go with RLMS. And then the HVAC IAQ upgrade is moved to underneath the school. And if you'll recall, last year's waterfall had this number at 66 million. So this came down about $25 million at Fairfield Ludlow High School for their HVAC IAQ upgrade. Mr. Lee just left, who is the liaison, but my understanding from a very high level, it was a reduction in the need of square footage that was needed to actually cover. That's high level answer for you with why.
Correct. That is correct.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Mrs. Maxichelli.
Just one quick question. I recall on the 26th, and I, again, can't do too much with this, but there's mention of the whatever fire system was needed, and you were worried about it complicating this number. Does that sound familiar? Am I making that up?
No, we are going to be adding, we're going to be talking through the fact that a lot of our not our suppression systems, but our alarm systems are starting to age out. And while we're ripping open ceilings and moving, just like we did in the first phase of the AC projects, we did new ceilings, new LED lights. It doesn't make sense to take all that work down to put it back up, to have to pull it back down again to get new wiring through and stuff. So we're working with the building committee. The number for this project was provided to us by the building committee. So we did ask them, and as they move further into their refinement of these numbers, to consider and get pricing for a fire alarm upgrade as well moving forwards.
So when it comes time to talk to other town bodies, we have got to be very transparent that this number is going up, but therefore also the title needs to change as well.
We can actually, I wanted to get, because it's with the building committee, I didn't want to make the change to the title without
Ah.
getting confirmation from them
Well,
that,
all right, I don't want to mess anything up. I'm
Yep.
thinking of, just like with the Ludlow Turf Field, there's more in the name and it's not in the number. I don't know if it's better to just have artificial turf and have note number 3, like the footnote that we have elsewhere, so that this is completely accurate. Artificial turf,
Yeah.
15, 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Note 3, we'll be adding field bathrooms. Similar here, maybe note 4, this number will change upon receiving. Again, just to make the document as much as possible be not needing to hear our meeting to understand what's going to happen with these numbers, but that's just a suggestion.
You are correct. We did ask if the number needed to change for Ward and Ludlow because of the alarm system, but there just isn't an estimate to include at this point. But that is the thinking, so. Or conversely, the board can consider listing them separately, like we did with others, even though they might go together. So I don't know how you want to work on the dollars and how you guys like to see things. I'm always a break it down for me person, but either combine the HVAC IAQ. It's just complicated because the building committee was given a name that doesn't represent what it's doing. And fire is a part of that building committee. It just isn't called there. So when I look at an HVAC IAQ project, my brain doesn't think HVAC. It thinks HVAC, fire, and vestibules. But that's because I know it's just the title doesn't match what it's doing. So when I think fire alarm, it's captured in there, but I see for people reading it, they wouldn't necessarily think that.
Then a suggestion is maybe do another one of the $1 things. As you say, break it out so it's very specific. And if that's just put in the same column, so we know we're shooting for it in that same year, but we don't have, I don't know. It just, again, we know it's going to be part of this. It feels like it needs to be represented here.
Well, if that's the case, I'd invite you to formulate an amendment for next Wednesday.
If we don't need to meet, we won't meet. I mean, unless I'm given some sort of a big task here this evening to go away and do, which I don't know yet. We have a placeholder, but
We're not there yet.
okay.
Yeah. More comments on Ludlow? We'll move on to Ward.
so there was not a lot of changes to Ward either. The HVAC did provide us with the updated numbers. One thing I wanted to point out, and that's why you'll see it highlighted in yellow here, is I did some more digging on this small roof project. And at this point, if the board is comfortable with it, and I apologize, I didn't have it for the facilities committee at the time, so they felt that we could pump that number out 5 years and still have a good active life on that roof at that point. My understanding is that roof that is identified there is a very small roof. It's the addition done when they reopened Ludlow for the band room on Ward. So it's really a one-room bump out, so that's why it's there. But we've had no issues and no complaints on it, and the warranty is still active on it. To 31, yes.
There's also the Ward Turf Field that's on this list.
Oh,
Talk
I
about that.
apologize, yes. The additional Ward turf field is on this list. Something that was brought up during budget season last year when we were discussing it. We were approached and asked if we would consider putting it back on there. There was an appetite from all town bodies, including the board. So we did put it on there. It's seen some changes from facilities committee meetings to the number that lives on the waterfall today. So happy to answer questions about it.
Mr. Lee.
With the partial roof replacement getting pushed out to 2031, 32, correct?
Yes.
So it would be, can that HVAC IAQ upgrade absorb that cost since The HVAC is, you gotta put an HVAC on top, you gotta change the roof anyway. Couldn't that facility, couldn't that project be absorbed within that?
I wanted to say, and I apologize, I should know this. I don't know if that room currently has air conditioning in it. I would have to look. And if the HVAC project wasn't going to be touching that room because it's part of the small bump out that already has it, I think it'd be hard to. I think it does too. I just didn't want to be quoted as saying.
Mrs. Maxicali.
Just a quick question. I know that the number has changed and maybe that's the reason, but I'm just wondering as a consistency thing, we didn't repeat the Dwight seed money on because it had been voted for last year, but the new artificial turf field had also been voted for last year, neither of which advanced. So I was wondering why one's on the waterfall and one isn't. But the Dwight seed money wasn't. So I'm just talking purely as a consistency thing, what the reason was for that.
Right this year.
As Mr. Jacobs said, Dwight is the town did not approve the seed money, but they did approve $1 million bonding for the work that was done by the
Right.
working group on there. It put us better into suit for moving through the design phase of that building. My understanding is there is also funding still available from that account that may be able to reallocated through a bonding resolution to move into that. And the other part of that is working with Svigals. My intent is to push that this board ask the town to fund that project fully as it is laid out here, because in order for us to get a state bond number, a state project number, the town has to show that they are willing to fund that project. And with the upcoming caps with 15% for ECC and other legislation changes, I think it would behoove us to move this project forwards as a publicly funded project as quick as possible.
Is that last part you were talking about related to the field or to Dwight?
Dwight.
Okay, so my question was just
Oh, I'm
way more simple than that. It was purely because as far as I know, Dwight would still need some seed money because there's some things that the building committee will do very specific to this project now moving forward. I agree
Yep.
that it will be less maybe than what we had put forward before because the $1 million report, that report did so much that would have been the work of, partially some of the work of the building committee. Again, this was purely a communication piece that we still need some seed money. And again, I'm just noticing that the Dwight seed money isn't on the chart. The artificial field, the new one, which we also voted out last year, is on here. That's all I was wondering about is the difference.
Just because we would still need to go out to bid for that project. So our intent would be to ask for full funding of that project, but
You're saying that project?
the turf
Okay.
replacement project, we would ask for full funding of that project based on again, I think it's been said a couple times here that we're going to ask for full funding of that project, but in the cash flow, it's going to show that we're moving the cash along as opposed to asking for, even though we're asking for them to bond the project, we're going to spend it over time and not just at
Okay,
one point.
I'm not quite getting
That's-
the answer to my question, but I'm going to fault myself for how I am phrasing it, so I'll just leave that alone. The only other question I had is that of the 2.3 million, how much of that, because that's what we were talking about last meeting, was how much of that was contingency? And that includes a side, because that number is even higher than what we just talked about. I think we'd started at 1.1, then we bumped it to 1.5 for contingency. Then Mr. Tassani was talking about, let's bring it up a little bit more, but this is even higher than our most recent conversation.
This is higher than our recent conversation. We worked with a firm called Landtech, who actually won the bid process for doing the design work at RLMS for the town. We worked with them to come up with a bid number, I shouldn't say bid, a budget number for this project.
Okay.
And based on what they learned from RLMS, this was a number that they felt was a comfortable number to put into.
So for not only the project, but include the contingency.
Include contingency.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Yeah, I just kind of have a follow-up to that question, and I don't know if anyone who is attending the working group meetings, do you have a sense for how much money is left in that account, the $1 million working group? I mean, like, was that reported out in the, like, do we have any clue at all what the?
The Board of Selectmen signed a contract for a
Yes.
specific amount. The number 770,000 is somewhere in my brain, Angela, so I'm not sure if that was.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I do know they did sign a contract, and the only other expense that I am aware of is that the working group did agree to pay for the Yale study that was done up at Dwight as well.
So I don't have a good answer for you. That's a Board of Selectmen question, but there may be some money left in that appropriation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lee.
Correct me if I'm wrong, any seed money we have to put is a percentage of what the total project is, correct?
Which,
So if.
is there a specific project you're
For
asking about?
Dwight, going on, Mrs. Kennelly,
In our past experience, we've used a percentage, but we felt that using our standard percent would not be ideal for this because of the work that's already been done.
Mr. Krasnov.
Yeah, to follow up with that, we thought asking for the whole project money made more sense. And then if additional seed funding was needed, then that would be a additional conversation, but to break out a specific amount and make it separate or a year earlier would just delay the project even further, and we're already partially through that work.
Ms. Flynn.
If we were to just ask for seed money this year, would we be able to go and put the project in for state reimbursement?
No.
No. So it is really important that we don't put in for just seed money, that we get the entirety of the project so that we can apply for state reimbursement, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful.
Any more questions on Ward?
Can I talk about the turf field for a second?
Yes.
So that was just moved over to this year since it didn't go through the town boards. There was a brief discussion about moving it over one more year when it would align with Ludlow getting its resurfacing done under the possibility of capturing some savings by doing two at the same time. That would be possible. We didn't do that. We left it in the year that it is, but just wanted to mention that to the board too as we move forward if there's any type of movement considerations that we have to do. So it was indicated we might be able to save a little if we did them both at the same time, but it is where it is now, just as it should be.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? I'm sorry, you're talking about doing the, not the new field, you're talking about the resurface of
No, the new field at Ward with the resurface with Ludlow. Next year, pushing that, right? And
Okay.
Ward would still have it.
Okay, yep, just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Board would have two back to back, so to
Yep.
speak, yeah. But it's not where it is. I just wanted to mention that we
Yep.
didn't have that.
Please remember to turn on your mic.
Huh?
When you have comments, please remember to turn on your mic. Otherwise, the recording will not capture it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
How about we move on to Walter Fitzgerald?
There was no change to Walter Fitzgerald. It's got the indoor air quality still. Questions about that?
Ms. Flynn.
Can someone just remind me, because I wasn't on the board when we purchased that property, was it fully air conditioned or were there pieces of it that were not?
There were pieces of it that were not still. That's
Thank
what
you.
this is.
Just for the public, and I
Yep.
couldn't remember. Thank you.
Mr. Krasnov.
Just for clarity, there wasn't really a change, but there was a location error that we caught. For some reason, the Ward project was moved ahead of Walter Fitzgerald, so we just swapped it back. So if you saw previous renditions or heard any of our meetings, it was in the opposite location. I just want to point that out to everyone. But yeah, the dollar amount did not change. The escalation was right. Everything else was right.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
I apologize, but just to reiterate the same Ludlow point is that if a line could be put in regarding the fire alarm system, because again, obviously that means this number is wrong once it includes that. But regarding Walter Fitzgerald, actually, could you remind me I've been on a few tours of the building, which parts of the building do not have HVAC at Walter Fitzgerald?
I know the not the large room, the room in the back of the large room.
Which is currently being used for what? Because when I toured it, it was mostly storage for gym equipment and things like that.
It is being used, trying to remember last time I was in that room.
We had talked about possibly the Board of Health could move there. We had talked about a few
There's
uses.
absolutely no use, no reason, no room for the Board of Health to move in there.
I'm not
They're,
advocating for that. I'm
They
just
are
saying-
using, I know they're using it as a podcast room. They're also doing some other work in
Maker
there.
space, there's a
Media
CAD, there's a
space.
bunch of stuff going
It
on.
has changed since
Yeah.
I was last there then.
Yep.
Okay, but so that's the only part of the build. So all of the classroom, the whole
The
classroom
classroom
wing,
wings
up and
are-
down,
Yes.
AC,
Yep.
the cafeteria part, that's now a cafeteria.
I apologize. I don't have my map in front of me that
Okay.
has the breakout of what is and isn't. And I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't want to go on record and say the cafeteria is air conditioned because I'm not even 100% sure that is
Okay,
at this point. And I want to say it may not be because it may be part of that whole that smaller
That
room
part.
off the back of it. Yep.
okay. All right, thank you.
Cindy, did you have your hand up?
Only if everyone is done with Walter Fitzgerald. I just want to go over a few more things that we.
Oh, okay. I was going to talk about the path ahead, but you take it.
No, I just wanted to also reiterate that yesterday, as you recall, in the back of our long-range facilities plan, we had several appendices on elevators, boilers, and roofs. So anything that was slated as a warranty date for through 2040, since this is when this waterfall goes through, were checked on in terms of if they're not on this waterfall, we at least checked, is that needed for each of those? There were several of them for boilers, water, elevators, and roofs, but nothing was added. But I just wanted to let the board know that we did check on those items as well.
Ms. Guernsey?
I have a question that I didn't ask when we were going through this. Can I ask it now? Okay.
Of course.
Sorry. So under the Osborne Hill column, we were talking a little bit about the annex, and that's a space that I've always been concerned about. And I was trying to remember the details, and I think it's because you were talking about it just now being a brick and mortar spaces, but there was different language that was used around it when many, many years ago when we talked about building that walkway. And there were building materials. I wasn't even on the board then. This was like pre-board. The building materials were like these acrylic materials that did not have a long lifespan. And there was a comparison made to the abbreviated lifespan of that annex in relation to these materials. So it was always my understanding that it in fact the way the building was constructed was different than the rest of our buildings. And I don't know the answer to it, but I remember it in connection with this acrylic panel solution, which was like, I don't remember, maybe it was like 20 years, or it was like a much shorter time frame that was expected to last. Of course, it was never built. But I don't know if that's something that you would either be able to explain to me so that I understand it or revisit it, or I'm not sure what I'm missing there.
So the acrylic panels are, as you said, acrylic panels. It's not a standard sheetrock house wall. It's not a standard sheetrock in our offices, and it's also not a cinder block wall, which a lot of our buildings have cinder block between classrooms and stuff. These are a frame. It's a frame and acrylic panel. We do keep very close eye on the acrylic panels. They are performing very well. There's no issue or concern with them at this point. We're actually thinking that in some areas they may be better than sheetrock for some reason because they've been holding up better than sheetrock. Sheetrock tends to get nicked and banged and holes in it, whereas the acrylic seems to hold up better to that. I was not here at the time of that, but I can also tell you that there's also been a nightmare in the past about acrylic paneling in schools and other buildings, and I think Dwight is a fine example of that. There is acrylic paneling in all those classrooms, which is one of the reasons we said that any project, if it was going to be a remodel at Dwight, would have to touch every classroom in that building because of those paneling.
Thank you. So, I mean, I did understand about the shorter lifespan at
Yep.
the time of the acrylic panel, but it was in connection with it being used to address that annex building, which at the time before you were here they talked about that it was not in fact the same lifespan as a regular building, that it had a shorter lifespan because of how it was constructed. So that sort of is in conflict with the idea that, oh, it's a regular brick and mortars building, that it's different in some way that I don't understand. But, if we're talking about this waterfall, I just want to make sure that that space is one that's given the attention it deserves, because when you enter it, it doesn't feel that way. It has that trailer feel.
When I say brick and mortar, I refer to the outside walls, not the internal non-weight bearing walls. Those are walls between classrooms and stuff that can be removed, replaced, and rebuilt. I'm talking brick and mortar, meaning the outside of the building is a brick building, solid walls, solid foundation. It's not a portable classroom where if you put a lot of weight on the outside of the wall, you're going to see a dent on the inside of the classroom. So.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you.
All right, we are getting deep into the night.
Can
I do want to,
Sorry, I just wanted to point out, one thing that two things I should have pointed out in the beginning is that we did add on the right side of the waterfall, we added the OGA reimbursement, which has always been there. We also added the OGA ECC reimbursement line because that is possibility now for projects and for projects in the future. So we want to be able to report on that. We also added the OGA line for special education reimbursements because there is possibility for that. And we also put a line in for special legislation just because there's always the potential for other reimbursements. So we wanted a home for them so we can identify them moving forwards. So that's why you'll see those on there. And then the other thing, at the committee's request, we removed the 10-year waterfall title and we changed it to the Fairfield Public Schools waterfall through 2040.
thank you very much. Yes, Ms. Mexico.
I just want to clarify for my own, when you say the OGA sped reimbursement, was that for the CLCs?
That's for any special education
That was
areas.
15%?
It's 50, right now it's 15%,
Okay.
but we wanted to have a home for it for the future too, because there is possibility of keeping that. So that's why we added those lines in there.
Thank you.
So what I'd kind of like to have happen at this point, again, we're going to have a extensive meeting on the 17th to talk about it in detail, but there seems to be an appetite to get some thoughts going. I'd like to go around the table and just get some, if we can, some brief thoughts. I do want to leave, I want to hear from everybody, but I want to leave plenty of time for the members of the public who have remained here. But before we go into that, I do want to add some additional context, which is that I was asked by members of this board to meet with the town to go over what the town's cash flow constraints are. And I updated the board about this, but for the sake of the public, I did have a meeting with the first selectman, the COO, the CFO, construction manager, the chair of the Board of Finance, to talk about what the town feels able to fund. What they told me at the time was that while many of the projects that we voted on in the order that we voted on them in 2024 would be able to fit in their current financial plans, they were concerned that adding more money to this waterfall would be a request that's too large, and that we might be asked to make choices if we want to put something else on, something else might need to come off. Now, as Mrs. Jacobson, I'm sure will tell you, we voted as a board for both in the September 2024 for a new build at Dwight and a ed spec earlier this year for a new build plus ECC at Dwight. So the board has made those requests, but in light of new information, and in light of the fact that the town may push back on the size of this waterfall, that could be something that might factor into our discussion. But I wanted to be very clear that this document ultimately is a statement of priorities for this board. And even if we go with, if we make no changes and go to the town may still come back and say, we can't fit everything you want. And there may need to be further discussion about that. I just want to be very upfront about that, because ultimately to put shovels in the ground requires money, and to get the money, we need to go through the town. We are not our own financing body. So there's going to be a process. We are in the thick of it here. in terms of making our requests, making our priority choices known. The next step will be the town's capital planning summit on the 25th. But even after that, there may be choices that we need to make based on what the town has to say. Mrs. Guernsey.
Just quickly, I was wondering when you were having that conversation, what document or what source were they talking about when it shouldn't exceed something? I mean,
The town is also puts together its own cash flow documents based on both town side and school side projects. Some of those numbers they had from Mr. Papageorge's conversation with Mr. Papageorge. Some of these numbers in this draft document are different, I believe, than what the town has been working with. And I'll need to make a comparison between drafts that I've seen that I don't think are public yet, and may not be made public until or finalized, or I shouldn't say public, finalized until the capital planning summit, and see where choke points might be. I think that's going to be a heart of the conversation that we're going to have with other town bodies is how is all this going to fit in their financial planning?
So I'm still confused. So then how would you clarify for me what number I'm supposed to be basing on these potential, like it's their document that they haven't relayed to us yet, or it's the document they were talking about? I don't really understand that.
I understand. And this whole process for the last 8 months has been difficult because we've been doing things unusually. All that I can say is that I know that the town is working on their waterfall just at the same time that we are working on ours. And then we will come together at the Town Capital Planning Summit and compare notes. At that time, there may be questions about, can you move this? Is this the way you want it? We may not be able to fit this. Can you find more money somewhere? So this is a discussion that's going to need to continue. And I think it's going to need to continue beyond September 25th. I don't think that we're going to be able to come to a decision at that point in time. It may come back to us after that if there are constraints put upon us on the town, guardrails or.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's hard to speak about a nebulous document that we haven't seen, or I'm not sure, maybe it's about our document. That's very confusing.
Well, I understand that, we didn't get a final draft document ourselves until this afternoon, and understanding that and trying to work backwards from the town capital planning workshop, may have been putting a lot of pressure, frankly, on the facilities committee. Like, can you meet more? And understanding that everyone has been working very hard on this. It is an unusual process and we're trying to feel our way through it is probably the best answer I can give you right now, as unsatisfying as that may be. Mrs. Flynn?
This is just a clarifying question for this process right now. What are you asking us to speak to? Are you asking us to speak to specific projects and whether we're in support of that, specific numbers? I'm just trying to get a feel of what you're wanting tonight and what you're wanting on the 17th, because those are two very different things.
Well, I would say for tonight,
Mhm.
if there are, having heard this information, if there are amendments you can conceive of raising on the 17th, that would change the constellation of these projects, that may be useful for the facilities committee to know now, because kind of to the point of facilities committee members, if there's a strong feeling one way or another, it might streamline our discussion on the 17th.
I just want to do
Ms. Flynn, are you done?
I
Ms.
just have a
Jacobson?
clarification, Mr. Peterson, based on what you said. You said the numbers that we voted on last year. So I'm just confused again. What numbers was your conversation based on?
The document that I saw differs in multiple ways from the document that we have in front of us tonight.
So you're talking about they were using a current draft.
I think they were using the 2024 document as a base with changes that were communicated through Mr. Papageorge.
Oh, okay.
But again, we're not synchronized yet.
I hear you. I understand.
Yeah.
I get you. We're just trying to understand what you guys were talking about because we weren't there. I just want to point out too, for the board, that the current waterfall that you have from tonight is a gross of $55 million less than our waterfall last year and a net of $44 million less than last year. So as it's constituted here today, you know that there's some things missing, right? We got some alarms missing, like right? But it is significantly less than last year. So I just wanted to point, I didn't know if that's like, they were like cool with the number last year, which means they should just be cool with this number because it's so much less. So I don't, yeah.
We will know more once we have the capital planning workshop meeting. But as you know, it's not just the total number.
And I don't mean
it's the-
cool to
it-
the Board of Finance. I'm just saying, you know what I mean.
They know what you mean, but as you know, and as the public should be aware of, the timing of projects, how they're going to fit that cadence of bonding is very important to the town, to the Board of Finance, to the Board of Selectmen, and that will be a focus of discussion. But with that, if anyone wants to start in terms of any ideas of things that they may want to, Mr. Krasnov, or not do, or argue against.
I can run through all the major projects real quick. If
You really
want.
don't need to run through everything. I mean,
You just
we-
want the one. Osborne Hill, I personally am gonna ask to make an amendment and go off part of Sfigal's plan to do 1,000 square foot addition, which would get their deficiencies done in a new build versus enclosing the annex. I did the rough math. It will be about 12,830,000 versus the number we have here. I think we may net a savings now. There will need to be a little more work done. It's a little farther out, but I'd rather see them get a new building than enclose that space.
Mr. Lee?
I'm as of right now, I'm happy with what's in front, what we presented from the from the facilities committee. We've had deep discussions on it, as among members of the board. I do think they might be if it comes back, that's another discussion, but I'm happy what we can present.
Mrs. Jacobson?
Oh, I mean, if you want my thoughts.
You're good.
Oh, yeah. Yes, the only concerns I have is how much is front loaded in 26, 27. I will tell you that the vestibules were a surprise 5 days ago. Not a surprise that they needed to be done, but they were that's a lot of money. I think that 26, 27 has been is very, very heavy, actually. And I'm also interested in hearing thoughts about moving some smaller projects into operating. But in terms of the big picture here, I'm good with everything that's on this waterfall. And this is primarily health and safety items and instructional spaces for our kids with a couple turf fields. I mean, that's where it comes down to for me. So, yep, I'm good.
Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you. I have similar feelings. I had some concerns about the front loading into this coming year for the cash flow. That being said, when I saw the items, especially that they were of a security nature, that concern went away from me. I also am ecstatic to hear that our community has a full-throated support of the inequity and unavailability of field capacity in our town. So I'm ecstatic to see that on here. And to me, if we're kind of getting behind that, I see no reason to get behind getting air quality in all of our buildings. So I don't see many changes for myself unless it comes back from the town.
Ms. Maxon Kennelly?
A few things. I think one request I have hopefully for the board is that anyone, and that includes myself, because obviously you kind of hinted you wanted me to craft the amendment. So Mr. Papa George, I will in terms of the fire alarm system. I do think that needs to be added, but for myself and then for anyone else who ends up, because I think I have to sit with this a good bit longer, but anyone who's going to be talking about numbers, I just ask them please to go through staff and make sure that we can feel good about them. I have no intention of trying to come up with the numbers. I will present you with the amendment, Mr. Papa George, and then ask you to provide that for me because I'm not about to try to estimate it. That's one thing that would make me uncomfortable at the table, to be confident about that. I'd also hope through the chair to Mr. Testani, if we could have Mr. Mancusi speak to the ECC. And it could be that his statement is any of these plans are great. But I think one thing that will be front and center for the other town boards, because I do think that they believe in supporting education. I mean, we've gotten phenomenal support from this town. But we need to be able to say that what is the educational reason for what it is that we're advocating for. So if we're talking about a giant steps with 10 or 2 elementary schools with 5, or do we scrap that all together and try to put a few in each school? Because I have absolutely heard that argument in the public and there are other towns that have that. But I would hope that if possible, if Mr. Mancusi could sit with some staff or, you know, talk to neighboring towns about what's working best. I want to know that the argument we present to the other town boards, we can say with confidence, this is the plan that has the best educational interests of our students at heart, or the best way to support the educational interests of our students. So that would be my request. Again, obviously, I was a part of the board where we heard meeting after meeting of very impassioned ECC staff speak to us about a one site. And their reasons were greatly detailed and made a lot of educational sense to me. And we're not talking about doing that anymore. But again, I really do trust the insights that the staff who are delivering these services, you know, what they have to say. And again, it could very well be that they say all of these plans look great. And then we know that we will have their backing, that if we go to another town board, ECC staff would say, yes, and there's none of this. Well, you know, really, this is what we would have wanted, and we didn't get a chance to say it, if that makes sense. And again, I'm not looking for that here, because again, I'm really
no.
hoping for some thought to be put into that.
It makes perfect sense. I don't think the perspective of the staff has changed. The ward site is obviously a very good site. From all our conversations, even recently, you know, having a 10 section that was proposed over at Giant Steps is obviously very attractive, and for all the reasons why they mentioned in the past. That was not on the table in the spring, so
Right.
having two other sites where there was 5 sections would work out extremely well. Again, strategically placed in town. We talked a lot about that over the last year and a half about giving access throughout the town and having these strategically located. That's why I believe Osborne Hill was part of that study. Riverfield was part of that study. Dwight, obviously, because it moved those closer to folks in a particular area of town. Giant Steps, again, I would wholeheartedly support that as an option, and I think the staff would appreciate for all the reasons they gave, you know, 2 years ago. But again, that's not here on the waterfall.
Thank you.
Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you. I very much appreciate the ask, Ms. Maxon Kennelly. We haven't really had a ECC update in a minute, and I think it's very timely with what we're talking about. I would just request through the chair to the superintendent that with that, we have kind of a broader look at preschool. I know that we have a lot of different examples throughout the state. There are definitely a few of self-contained where there are one site versus in the elementary school setting. If we could see some data, possibly, I think that would be really helpful. As much as I love our anecdotal, but we often say that that's an opinion, not a fact. So I think if we're going to start talking about preschool programmatics, I'd like to see a broader kind of look at it. That's just my thoughts.
I'd rather go finish going around and come back for some follow-ups. Mrs. Guernsey?
Thank you to the Facilities Committee for all of your, the enormous amount of work that has gone into this project. Super grateful. I haven't had a lot of time to spend with this because we just got the document. So I can say, like, I feel like comfortable with a lot of aspects of it. I mean, I don't love being surprised, and the vestibules really were a surprise to me. So I mean, I understand and support any kind of safety and security concerns we have, but I don't understand why this is something that didn't come to us sooner. That does concern me. But in general, I feel pretty excited about these projects, quite honestly. So thank you.
And Mrs. Rinaldi?
No big changes for me. Thank you from the Facilities Committee. Thank you.
Mr. Krasnoff?
I just want to throw out one quick comment about Giant Steps. My big concern is for us to even consider spending $40 million on a 10 classroom site when last year we tried to put a brand new elementary school forward around 40 million and we got looked at like we were crazy. Why would we add another building with 40 million? I have a major concern with that versus putting them into projects where we can get extra reimbursement for them in locations that make a lot of sense. No, if we had unlimited money, absolutely, I would consider that project, but I don't think we do. And I think adding another building on top of the buildings we already manage is a mistake. I just want to throw that out there.
Mr. Lee?
To go on a different topic with the safety vestibules, we saw an opportunity, like Superintendent Testani said, based on today's element and environment, we saw an opportunity where we may be able to move some of those projects up and not get boggled down in the back when we have other big projects going, without stopping. It'd be wise of us to take some of those smaller projects and put it, especially when it came to school safety, and push it up a little forward, and instead of staggered out like it was, try and complete them all as it can be, so every school has a safety vestibule.
All right, thank you for that. I guess I'd like to wrap it up at this point. I appreciate Mr. Mancusi coming up, but I kind of don't want to jump into that discussion. That's a lengthy, detailed discussion that I think we can make time for next week. Mrs. Jacobson, do you have a follow-up?
Wanted to follow up. I think that it's really important that we didn't get a special ed programming before budget this year where we actually get some enrollments. And I think that it's going to be really important to piggyback on Mrs. Flynn's commentary on both the philosophical foundational philosophy of what we're doing with preschool, meaning a program that is designed for students with special needs with typical peers versus some other model. But that's the educational component. I've never been for one site. I've worked in districts, in other states where every elementary school has preschool. It's pre-K-5. I understand in this area, the staffing concerns and the issues that people want to be together. I feel like having that conversation, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, I feel like we've had this conversation for like 6 years. So I know you want to have another conversation about, but we've talked about so much little than ECC for since 2018, right? Meanwhile, we have all these other buildings that need to have projects done. So I don't know how, even if there was all the money in the world, how would we add a 19th footprint, and where would that go? I mean, is that those are just some of my thoughts for Mr. Peterson.
I think we can get into all that on the
Okay.
17th.
Okay, but that's a night of a vote, so I have concern on that, but yeah.
I budgeted 4 hours for this meeting. It was a single agenda meeting. We could go on and on. As you say, we've been going, as long as I've been on this board, we've been having those discussions. I would kind of like to move on at this point. Very quickly, please. We have people who are waiting to give comment. I wanna
Yeah,
make sure they
just
have their
real
time.
quick, in terms of facilities committee, I know Ms. Max Kennelly alluded to this. If there were other things anyone wanted to see, we could try to work through it. We have the price per square foot and stuff. Like, we don't get slammed with a million other scenarios, but to her point, if there's something you want to see that you might make an amendment, we can work through it if you feel comfortable
No,
sending
I-
it to us.
But, okay. You had a correction.
Just two corrections. First, because I know Mr. Krasnoff was always very good as a member of the public correcting our numbers. Just to be clear, that the Giant Steps number was 33,022,000 with reimbursement. So it is not a $40 million project. I'm just correcting the number.
Plus
I'm not
staff,
getting into the
plus
pros.
staff
I'm
and
not
stuff
getting
you
into the.
gotta put
Mr.
into
All
it.
right,
Krasnoff,
that's-
I'm talking.
That's enough. She has the floor. She has the floor, Mr. Krasnoff.
Mr. Krasnoff, if you're
let's just
talking
wrap
about
this
being
up.
honest, then
just wrap
all
this
of
up.
these numbers are flawed. They are the
All right,
best
Mrs.
numbers we have.
Maxon-Kennelly?
I'm trying to finish my point. I'm trying to finish my point. Mr. Krasnoff, there's a way to behave at the board, and
right,
interrupting this
please,
person with the floor is
If you want to make
not
your
it.
correction, Ms.
So
Maxon-Kennelly, now's
first
the
of all,
time
the
to do it.
number of the building that would go into the chart would not be 40 million. And secondly, to Mrs. Jacobson's point, I agree that we have been talking about this for a while, but at no point in time did we ever make a decision. We kept talking about it. Now we are on the precipice of approving a project which will commit us to a direction. So now is the time to make that decision. And for example, when we're talking about footprints, look at what happened to the Jennings number when we add the ECC there. That is almost the full cost of what it would be with reimbursement to do it at Giant Steps.
Ms.
I'm
Maxon,
not advancing an argument.
I know you made your correction, though. And I think it's best to put a pin in this discussion until next Wednesday. I'm gonna move on from here. Thank you, Mr. Papa George. We'll move on to superintendent's report.
Yes, I'm going to give the members of the public the opportunity to come up and speak at this time. And again, like you said, they've been waiting and I do not want to take any of their time. So
Do we have committee or
I'll
liaison
pass.
reports that we can make quickly? Mrs. Guernsey?
Yeah, I'd love to update everyone on the curriculum committee. So we haven't met recently, but today there was a message that went out via Parent Square that indicated that the books were available for review for social studies. As the chair of the curriculum committee, I would say that I absolutely have no information about this. These books were intended to always come to the curriculum committee first. All of the members of our committee had asked for this to happen in this way. I'm not sure why it didn't. I'm not sure why the board didn't receive information about the availability of this ahead of time. The process is a little bit pretty frustrating, actually, to circumvent this committee. So I just wanted to let the board know that, yeah, these books are available, and you may or may not know that because you might not have gotten the Parent Square email. So I don't know if that's something through the chair that our superintendent can help address here, why this is happening. And I'm also concerned because in the message to parents, it gave a deadline for the books of November 1st. It was actually a different year, but I'm just trying to make sure also that we are on schedule to vote for that social studies curriculum in October as planned. Thank you.
Moving on to open board comment. Seeing none, public comment. 3 minutes. If you have not already spoken to items on the agenda, you can come up and speak now. I cleared out time for you. Just make sure you press the button and name and address, please.
In the interest of time, I'll try to make it short. My name is Lauren Castaneda. I live at 153 Brookside Drive. I have 2 students at Osborne Hill. I'm here representing the Osborne Hill PTA as well as the SEPTA Special Education PTA. Just a couple of comments, and they don't all have to be, it's mostly questions and they don't have to be answered tonight, but I'd like to know where I can get some more information. You had mentioned specifics about the Osborne Hill building and wanting to make some changes to the current plan. I'm not even aware of the current plan. I'm new to this role this year. If there's somewhere I can get more information to share back to the PTA, that would be helpful to understand. And then I'll spend the rest of the time on, I'm sure it's not, I don't want to open another can of worms, but I have a son who finished at ECC in 2024. And at that time, a couple years ago, I sent an email to this board in support of a single ECC site. I'm hearing the conversation tonight, and it does feel like in the interest of knowing that Dwight and Jennings need renovation and that they're counting on this ECC space to get a bigger reimbursement from the state, it feels insincere to even talk about the fact that one ECC is still on the table. So, I mean, you're putting aside 4 hours next week, but should the special education parents in this town, the preschool parents in this town who are in support of one ECC even get their hopes up? Or is this something that feels like it's a decision that's kind of made based on all of the, it never was officially made, I agree, because I've seen that and listened to board meetings and things. But it feels kind of like a foregone conclusion. And is that something where I should go back to the SEPTA group and say, like, this is still on the table, it's something worth discussing? Or is that just going to be spinning wheels?
We don't normally answer questions at these meetings. I would just say, come to the meeting on the 17th. Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to give comment? Please come up to the table. You have up to 3 minutes if you haven't spoken already tonight.
It's great. It's great. Amanda McDevitt, 400 Burr Street. Here as a Dwight parent, been following along the conversation. I think it's been going on for a long time, and I think the community has just asked for transparency. And I think tonight, sitting here for a few hours and hearing that the meeting's actually going to be next week to talk about it, I think was a surprise. And so again, I think it feels like a continued lapse in transparency. And I think as you make the decisions about the budget, and the decision forward and backing it, just taking into account like the privilege to renovate a school and not displace those students and keep them together, and the impact on families and students to separate them. So thank you. And thank you for all.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
My name is Brendan Higgins. I'm a Dwight parent, have a first grader.
Would you use your address, please? Name
Yes,
and-
certainly.
Thank
you. Half Mile Road, just off of Cedar. I have a first grader with two kids who will eventually hopefully be going to Dwight. I admit that I candidly don't have a full command of the effects, but I can only really speak to the great quality of the Dwight community. You know, every kid is different. Some kids really thrive in all different communities. Some of them really benefit from having a very smaller, tight-knit community. I'll just, put into, real personal stakes. My daughter, who's the kindest person in the world, has really thrived in the Dwight community because it is a very small, close network. You always want the best for your kids. I am concerned about how many kids would survive and thrive if they were to be spread out across the very large town. I grew up in Fairfield. I love Fairfield. I lived here my whole childhood. I'm going to raise my family here and live here forever. Ultimately, I really want the best for all kids, but I know that Dwight is a very special place. And specifically, selfishly, I know that my daughter has been very successful there because it is such a very good community. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Hi, I'm Nicole Olson, 172 Cedar Road, Dwight parent, and also hopefully newly on the building committee. I just want to point out, I'm new to this, so I hear things, I see things. I know that this isn't easy for anyone, parents or you guys included. This has been a long going, I'm going to use the term battle, because that's how it feels as you sit back here, especially newbie to, I have a kindergartner only and a preschooler. So I'm getting thrusted into this, like, welcome to parenthood at like Mach speed. And then they're like, hey, you know how a hammer works, join a committee. And I'm like, huh, okay. So I did. And I think what everybody needs to remember is it's not White School, McKinley, Osborne. We are Fairfield. And a new school, in my eyes, and I get your point, by the way, about the whole, wait a minute, we renovated other things, why not this one and all that? When you build a new school and plan for the future, being here last week made the most sense to me about a new building. I'm definitely leaning that way. I always leave my mind open. But you took from Dwight and gave those kids to Burr for a reason because the building wasn't great. And now you have other schools that are starting to overflow. And what we're being given the opportunity to do now is to solve the problem for not my kids. My kids aren't going to benefit that much from this. They're going to be almost gone by the time this is done in my eyes. I know how construction works. If you want to think to the future, you can't think of each individual school as its own little special person who gets this new special toy. That's not it. It's going to benefit the whole town to start focusing on making these buildings, talking about, hey, when they looked at Osborne Hill, how much more would it be to prepare that new foundation for a possible second floor someday? That was the first thing I heard that made sense. Stop thinking about who gets the shiny new toy at the moment. And remember, every town, every district, every school has had its turn. It's Dwight's turn, but it will benefit all the surrounding schools that you might now be able to say, hey, we need to adjust the lines a little and take the pressure off of this school and in turn that one. We are a town. We are not each individual elementary school when it comes to buildings. So help all the students by going, I would say, to the larger scale project and look to the future for where are we going to be 20 years from now when none of us are sitting in this room anymore? And what have we set up for the next generation? Because the last generations, by not thinking about that, have put you guys in this position. So don't think about right now. Let's worry about getting more money from the state. And let's think about what can we build now that will also benefit this town when we're gone.
Thank you very much.
Dina Ryder, 400 Flintlock Road. Is this on? I'm the Dwight PTA Board of Ed rep. You guys have kept me very busy over the last 2 or 3 years. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for making the exception and letting our 4th grader come up and speak. Us. We've been through a lot over the past few years with the threat of closing Dwight, with the air quality issues, now with us being up for renovation, rebuild. Heard, oh, the Dwight community doesn't care, they don't show up to meetings. I hope that you guys now see that we do care. I'm so proud of how many parents came tonight. A lot of kindergarten parents, 1st grade parents that didn't even know where this building was are here, staying till 11 p.m., speaking. We're fired up. We're very invested.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackson Foldiak. I'm from Fairfield, although I live on 1 Miller Street. I was just wondering if we could bring up any information, topic from like old policy, because my friend and I were not here for.
It's the policy of the board to take comment from the public on items that are on our agenda.
I'm here just for phone policy.
That's not an item on our agenda tonight. I'm sorry.
Not the agenda.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming out, though. Any further members of the public want to speak on agenda items? All right, seeing none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Lee, seconded by Ms. Rinaldi. All in favor? Unanimous vote. Thank you very much, everybody.